He knocked gently on the door and took a step back, waiting for it to open. Literally 30 seconds later, the door swung open and a young girl appeared before the guy, who had once been his teammate. A faint smile played on the guy's face just from the sight of his girlfriend. "Come in, Shikamaru." The girl smiled back, letting the guy into the house. Nara immediately entered the house, placing on the table a small bag, which he held in his hand before, and then proceeded to the living room, from where the voices of his close friends could be heard. The semicircle that had gathered in front of the sofa interested Shikamaru, who immediately proceeded to him, frightening some part with his sudden appearance, and some did not even notice him, continuing to observe with enthusiasm what was happening. And there was something to see. Kiba and Lee, already clearly tipsy, were trying to draw something on paper with their eyes closed. Both turned out terribly. All this was accompanied by Sakura's encouraging comments and the friendly laughter of the guys. "I ask everyone to the table," Ino said encouragingly, but everyone tactfully ignored her without even hearing her. Only Shikamaru walked over to the table and sat down in his seat, clearly noticing that there were fewer plates now than a few years ago, when they were set for their release. But that time has already passed. Seemingly angry, Yamanaka repeated her words again, but this time using telepathy, which made Kiba and Lee jump in their seats, dropping their pencils. Everyone immediately sat down at the table, not ceasing to laugh at the drawings of failed artists. Ino, as always, prepared everything well, which Nara could not help but notice, but there was silence at the table, despite the fun that had enveloped the room earlier. All those present understood that they would never be able to relate to these meetings as before, but they still tried to somehow forget about their friends who fell in battle for at least one evening and relax, but it was clearly not possible for many. And definitely not him. "Before Kiba and Lee get drunk, we'd like to make an announcement they won't forget tomorrow morning." Ino snickered, prompting a protest from the two drunks about their memory abilities. Shikamaru just nodded, agreeing with Yamanaka's argument, and looked at Sai, who stood next to the girl. He just recently, literally the day before yesterday, found out about Sai's outing from the village for a wedding ring, so he was not particularly surprised when the couple announced the wedding, scheduled for the end of spring. Silence fell immediately in the room, after which congratulations immediately rained down. Nara was sincerely happy for his teammate, and hoped that at least she would be able to forget about the pain that binds those present here and lead a full life that she deserves. "I have toast," Choji announced loudly when everyone finished congratulating and went to their seats. Someone on their team had to say it, so Shikamaru was immensely grateful to Akimichi for volunteering himself. Nara himself will congratulate his girlfriend, but this is later, and not at the table. "So that everything is good in your life." Everyone present immediately laughed out loud at the straightforwardness of already such an adult Chuji. Kiba even joked about it, to which Akimichi turned away in a touchy way, but after apologizing, when everyone picked up his toast, he couldn't help but turn back, clinking glasses with the others. Niji, Shino, and Tenten would be happy, Choji thought, but noticing the silence that suddenly hung in the room, he realized that he had said this sentence aloud. A knock on the door cleared the air, forcing everyone to rise from their seats and head for the hallway. "Is Naruto there?" "Unfortunately, no," Sasuke grunted, walking into the apartment and causing everyone present to freeze for a second, after which the Uchiha was dragged into the house and seated at the table, not even allowing him to say hello to anyone normally. "You never know, you'll run away from the village again," Ino joked, disappearing through the doorway and returning with a set of instruments that she placed in front of Sasuke. "How is the mission?" "Not bad," the Uchiha replied curtly, but that was enough for everyone. Do not ask the guy about the mission, when there is such a joyful event with Ino and Sai. Sasuke will wait until tomorrow. Or maybe evenings. "Naruto? I recently left on a mission." Ino shrugged, obviously annoyed that this blonde was not here with them now, but the missions would not complete themselves, so no one had any resentment. "And now help yourself, because competitions are waiting for you soon." The first 2 hours passed very quickly, filled with laughter and fun. The competitions were clearly more interesting than Kiba and Lee's, but they still remained the main participants, wanting to show their drunken skills in absolutely everything they could. Because of this, Kiba passed out, and Lee walked around the house, trying to somehow get rid of the desire to return everything that he ate that evening in a not very pleasant way. At some point, Hinata abruptly got up from her seat, and after saying goodbye to everyone, she left, at the exit also apologizing to Ino and referring to very important matters that she almost forgot about. Ino could only nod, following the back of a girl who was in a hurry somewhere. Everything is fine? Sai approached his future wife, embracing her. Ino nodded as she closed the door and returned with the boy to the living room, where the fun didn't want to stop, but only just began. Naruto was a frequent visitor to the Konoha graveyard. His mother, friends who fell in battle and godfather were buried here. Slowly approaching each tombstone, he left a few flowers on each. Niji loved violets, Shino loved daisies. He knew the favorite flowers of all his friends. He was the only one in the cemetery now, which undoubtedly pleased. If anyone else had been here, he wouldn't have been able to sit in front of his mother's gravestone much longer, telling her about everything that had happened to him on his last mission. Now, when there was no one around, he could calmly pour out his soul to the closest person, looking at the Rosalia and comparing their brightness with her character. He often thought about how his life would have turned out if there had been a close person next to him since childhood, who would support, hug, comfort you in any difficult situation. Everything would be great. Not the way he imagined it once in his childhood, no. Then he thought that if he had parents, they would solve all his problems, but no. They would just be the incentive to solve problems that he didn't have as a child before his dream of becoming Hokage. "This is our last meeting in this world, Mom." Naruto smiled bitterly, clutching a photo of his smiling parents to his chest. He found it in a warehouse at the residence, and immediately took it to himself. Always in difficult situations, when he could not make a decision, he looked at this photo, asking his mother for advice, and it helped. "On my last mission to protect the Mizukage, I was attacked with some strange, slow-acting poison. This is the last hour of my life, I hope we meet you there." And he began his story about the mission from which he had just returned and which was his last. He told about funny situations with the Mizukage, who tried to set him up with some of her subordinates. Chojuro, who was with them then, also mentioned how he had become stronger and would soon replace Mei as Mizukage. He was sincerely happy for his friend and believed that he would help the Miss Blossom and get rid of his old name. Bloody. "You know, Mom, I don't regret anything in my life. I met a lot of good guys who became close friends for me and with whom we went through a lot together." Uzumaki smiled, scrolling through everything related to his friends in his head. Their escape from detentions back at the academy, Kakashi's test, chasing Dame's wife's cat, and then their first serious mission in the Land of Waves. There was so much that he wished he could live it all over again. Chunin exams, meeting Orochimaru, fighting Kiba, and then meeting Jiraiya. One after another, the pictures slowly floated before my eyes. Before death, the whole life really flashes before his eyes. Now Naruto knew it. And he had a good life, he would even say that it was beautiful. Despite all the ups and downs, his friends were always by his side, ready to support him in any situation and go with him even on the most stupid adventure that he could think of. "Thank you guys. For everything, sincerely." As he had not done since the war, Naruto smiled, no longer feeling his legs. Yes, the poison has already reached the final stage of action. A few more minutes, and he will go to his parents. "Thank you too, Kurama. It was a pleasure to work with you, friend." In response, the fox only let out an approving growl. He was not going to be released from the body of the Uzumaki. It would be better to be reborn in a few years than to leave his host alone. For him, it was important, so even Naruto's persuasion did not help to convince Kurama. He would like to see his friends, but they were having fun together now, so he did not want to spoil their mood. They will learn about everything one of these days, but let them rest at least today, not worrying about anyone. They all needed an outlet, and now he will be superfluous there. "We should thank you, Naruto-kun." A quiet female voice sounded above his ear, but the guy could no longer twitch. The poison now immobilized his hands, leaving the guy only the ability to turn his head. It was not difficult to recognize Hinata's voice, but he did not feel her presence even at such a small distance. "You became a ray of light for everyone, made people with your words, behavior, believe that everything will work out. You just need to never lose heart and strive for your goal. You can't even imagine how much you've done for me, Naruto-kun." The girl spoke quietly, measuredly, carefully stroking the hair of the guy lying on the ground. She was sad, very sad, and she just wanted to cry, but she couldn't afford it. She didn't want him to see her crying over him. Now she wanted to say everything she thought, everything she could not tell him before. "Thank you, Hinata." Naruto smiled, closing his eyes. He was really glad that he was able to see her goodbye. The girl who once knew only how to cry and secretly watch him, now supported him, did not leave him alone. She became a really strong kunoichi. She wanted to help him in some way, although she herself held out with the last of her strength so as not to cry. At some point, she reminded him of his mother. The same kind, modest and beautiful, able to fend for herself. Probably, if he had paid attention to her earlier, now everything would have turned out differently. But it was too late now. He could only press his head against the girl hugging him and understand that the person he dreamed of was always next to him. Yes, even though he got older, he was still as stupid as before. In pursuit of an imaginary image, he simply did not notice the person who had been so close all this time. What an idiot he is. I'm sorry. Say hello to Minato and Kushina. The fox grinned as he watched the Uzumaki's subconscious body slowly rise into the air and begin to evaporate. It was interesting with you, Naruto. It's a shame it all ended so quickly. Arc I. Chapter 1 Probably many have heard the phrase, "Shinobi grow up quickly, an orphan shinobi even faster." Setsuko couldn't help but agree with this statement. Being alone since childhood, she had to use all possible ways to survive. Wandering from one settlement to another, the girl learned to get food and water for herself in not very correct ways, as many would have noticed, but otherwise it was even more difficult. The period of clan strife had a negative effect on the economic situation of the entire country. The number of missions that all small settlements had sharply decreased several times, as well as the rewards for their implementation. And if earlier it was possible to survive by completing missions, now the main activity of lone shinobi was theft. There were not so many of them, but several had already managed to become famous throughout the country. Single shinobi were considered those shinobi that did not belong to any of the clans, and could not join any of them due to the lack of a genetic predisposition. They rarely teamed up or formed their own organizations, mostly acting individually, which is why this class got its name. "Who is your master?" smugly licked the guy, approaching the girl lying on the bed. She shyly turned her head away, but still quietly called out the name of her client, which irritated the guy even more. No longer able to restrain himself, he pounced on the girl, grabbing her by the neck and roughly pressing her to the bed. "Right. What are you willing to do for your master?" "Kill," the girl answered shortly, throwing the guy to the ground. Blood slowly began to seep from the wound on his stomach, staining the white t-shirt with scarlet, bloody stains. The girl indifferently rubbed her neck, noting to herself that at the place of capture there would be a trace that would have to be disposed of for a long time. "I'm sorry, sir, but weaklings don't survive." Not listening to insults in her direction, the girl attached an explosive seal to the guy's forehead. On her way out of the house, she grabbed some valuable jewelry and a former aristocrat's purse. Leaving the house, the kunoichi activated the explosive seal, disappearing into the shunshin. Once at the edge of the forest, the girl put the jewelry aside and opened her purse. It was clearly not all that the guy possessed, but this was enough for her in the near future. Moreover, if she sells these jewelry to some rich man in another city, then for the next 2 months it will be possible to forget about hunger. How had she not come up with this idea before? By simply stealing from the market, she provided for herself only for a day or two, but here there is enough money for at least a week, if not more. It depends on how to use them, of course, but Setsuko was not a stupid girl, so she is not going to impersonate a capital that has suddenly increased several dozen times. Information about the appearance of rich people between small villages diverges in a day or two, so the option of leaving for the nearest village did not help. "Would you like to return what you stole?" came a rough voice in his ear. Before Setsuko even had time to react, a kunai was placed at her throat, clearly hinting that for any extra movement she would lose her life. "It belongs to our clan. I'll just take it from you and we'll disperse without fighting. If you make at least one extra move, it will be your last." The girl swallowed, out of the corner of her eye noticing the black hair of a guy who bent down to pick up the jewel. He really did not touch anything, except for one brooch, picking up which, he immediately disappeared. It was clearly not her level. Far from her. If desired, he could kill her without even blinking an eye, and then disappear unnoticed. Today she was lucky for the second time, but this will not last forever. Therefore, she immediately made the only decision that came to mind to leave this village. As soon as possible and as far as possible. Without even going to the market to buy herself at least something to eat, the girl ran by the upper paths towards the nearest village. It wasn't that far away, a few hours for a shinobi. If you got over the upper paths, ordinary people walked this distance in a day and a half. Setsuko, although she was at the level of an average chunin, was not inferior in speed to many jonin, and therefore she planned to cover the whole path in 2 hours. Throughout the journey, the girl dreamed of the same shinobi that had recently taken her prey from her. It was impossible to attribute it to any clan whose territory is nearby. Nearby were only the Inuzuka clan and about 8 hours away, the Nara clan, but that guy could not be attributed to any of them. Nara would just use their shadow technique, and a dog constantly walks next to Inuzuka, especially since her opponent had great speed, since he could so quickly and quietly be next to her. But despite the bad premonition, no one attacked her along the way. Arriving in the village, the girl immediately went in search of some cafe with a hotel. She found it pretty quickly. A small hotel with a cafe on the ground floor was the first building she stumbled upon when she was in the village. The young waitress greeted kindly, pointing to a free table. As soon as the girl sat down at the table, a menu was immediately put on it, after which the waitress went home. In the cafe, the overwhelming majority were men of about 40, washing down their next grief, obviously not the first bottle of sake. Ignoring what was happening to the side, Setsuko placed her order and sat comfortably waiting, roughly estimating how much she would spend on food and lodging. I didn't want to immediately kill all the money, but hunger clearly prevailed, because after a few minutes 5 plates with various kinds of food were placed on the table in front of the girl. Why is such a beautiful girl sitting alone? Without even asking permission, he sat down on a chair on the other side of the table. Setsuko didn't react at all as she continued eating. Only when the man reached out with his hand to some plate, she kicked him under the table with her foot, saturating that one with chakra. Break not broken, but the bruise definitely remained. Cursing unhappily, the man stood up and returned to his comrades to their friendly laughter. Setsuko bit her tongue in annoyance, wondering at herself how she managed to maintain a calm face in the presence of such a creature nearby. After finishing her meal, the girl went to the counter to pay for her dinner and get a room. The room turned out to be quite cheap, and if she did not spend that much on just one dinner, then she could safely stay here for a week, or maybe a week and a half, using only the money that she now had on hand. But she will decide this tomorrow, and now she just wants to sleep well on a comfortable bed. With a comfortable bed, she clearly lost. At the sight of the torn mattress and torn walls, the desire to stay here longer than that night disappeared instantly. Apparently good food didn't mean good rooms, or maybe she was just unlucky. But now it was clearly not up to it. Closing the door behind her and attaching a weak explosive seal in front of the door for unexpected enemies, just so that she would wake up to hear the explosion without breaking anything, the girl lay down on the bed, immediately falling asleep. The inconvenience didn't matter. She hadn't slept on something that didn't look like a tree branch or the ground for too long. And this broken bed met all the parameters. The girl woke up, successfully falling out of bed and kissing the floor. Opening her eyes, Setsuko grimaced in displeasure, rubbing her forehead and nose, which had suffered the most. Rising quickly, the girl went to the bathroom, which was no better than a bed, but even that was enough for her to wash and go down to the cafe. The cafe was practically empty except for one young guy sitting quietly at the end table. Having given the key to the room, the girl ordered a meal and sat down at a free table, of which there were many. The waitress brought the food rather quickly and, after asking permission, sat opposite Setsuko. "My name is Aya, nice to meet you." The young girl smiled, looking at the girl with interest with her green eyes. Noting to herself that the girl was trustworthy and rather pretty, Setsuko also introduced herself. "What are the fates here?" "I'm traveling," the girl answered distantly. Suddenly, the girl's sixth sense screamed of danger. Accustomed to trusting her intuition, Setsuko paid for the food and promptly stormed out of the establishment. If someone was following her, then it became dangerous to stay here. Deciding to move to the nearest village, the girl took off and ran towards the forest. She rushed for about an hour, not slowing down, but the bad feelings still did not disappear. Stopping in a small clearing to take a breath, the girl tensed up sharply. Intuition simply screamed about the approaching danger. Recovering her breath, Setsuko wanted to run away, but the fiery dragon flying out of the forest, which swept over the girl, setting fire to the forest behind her, made it clear that she could not escape. 3 dark-haired guys landed on a branch with Sharingan burning in their eyes with 2 tomo. Setsuko tensed, realizing that she had no chance of survival. But one thing was not clear to her: why was she the all-powerful Uchiha clan? The guys did not talk, and 2 rushed into battle, and the 3rd began to add seals for his equipment. "Why do you need me?" Dodging the attacks of 2 shinobi who were slightly weaker in level than her individually, but the numerical advantage clearly compensated for this. Weak, but rather nimble Chunin. If she had fought them one-on-one, she would have won without any problems, but now the chances were exactly 0. And the guy left behind was a huge problem. In terms of level, he was a cut above both his comrades and hers, but for some reason he did not engage in close combat, throwing techniques. She could not dodge forever, and the guys clearly surpassed her in endurance, so it was useless to drag out time any longer. Having blocked the blow of one guy, the girl had to jump back, dodging the blow of the second. They honed their technique to the ideal, so it is not surprising that she could not counterattack. I give up. Setsuko tried her luck, stopping abruptly. The guys stopped attacking, but the weapons were not removed, preparing to attack again at any moment. The third Uchiha jumped down from the branch and slowly approached the other two guys, standing a little behind. He didn't have any weapons with him, which confirmed the girl's thoughts about the guy's abilities in close combat. A kunai with an explosive seal stuck into the ground, between two Uchiha, and he had to jump in different directions. The girl just chuckled softly and jumped up, took out a real kunai with an explosive seal and threw it at the third guy. He calmly dodged it, smiling contentedly. Suetun, Water Dragon. Being literally a meter away from the guy, the girl shouted out the name of the technique. The guy easily dodged and rushed at the girl, pulling a katana from the seal on his shoulder. The girl's eyes widened when she saw the allegedly weak in close combat katana in her hands. The blade easily pierced the girl's leg. Not bad, but not enough to win, the Uchiha said smugly, but instinctively jumped to the side, dodging the attack from behind. The girl's body turned into water and disintegrated. Water clone. Suddenly, the girl herself was clearly battered. Chakra is enough for one more similar trick and that's it. The water clone was using up too much chakra, which she didn't have much of after the water dragon. There was not much strength left, and the Uchihos were still calmly standing on their feet, not even out of breath. Looks like it's really over for her. Die. The girl didn't even dodge, watching how the katana, covered in fire, swiftly descended on her. Her opponent did not bother, deciding to finish everything with one simple blow. The reward will be ours. Well or not. A male voice sounded next to Setsuko, and the katana was stopped a few centimeters from the head with a bare hand. Turning her head towards her, possibly savior, the girl noticed surprised blue eyes that were looking at the Uchiha. What surprised the guy turned out to be a mystery to the girl. Commentary on Arkai, Chapter 1. Until the holidays are over, I hope to write 2 more chapters, but I do not promise anything. Arkai. Chapter 2 Naruto woke up from an annoying pain in his stomach and the most uncomfortable surface on which he slept. Grimacing in displeasure, the Uzumaki opened his eyes, trying to figure out where he was and how he got here. Still not fully awake, the boy rubbed his eyes, yawning heavily. No sensible thoughts came to mind, as well as any in general. I got it in the ass again. Naruto sighed wearily, sincerely hating his butt's ability to find adventure in absolutely any situation. He couldn't even die peacefully. Stop. I died, didn't I? Twisting his hands in front of him and examining his body, the guy whistled in surprise. He even had the clothes in which he died in Hinata's arms. And not even torn, but in absolutely normal condition. Having scolded Rikudo several times, the world he created and the illogicality of everything that is happening here, Uzumaki, with a sense of accomplishment and a calm soul, got to his feet. Stretching. Fox alive? Naruto turned to his friend, but there was no answer. Having descended into the subconscious, at the place where Kurama had once settled down, the guy found absolutely nothing, not even any residual traces of the chakra of the strongest Biju being here. Without Kurama, it will obviously be more difficult. The situation did not like the guy more and more with every second. It turned out to be incomprehensible where, incomprehensible how, and Kurama is not around. Closing his eyes for a second, Naruto opened them, looking at the world already in hermit mode. The whole world began to play with new colors, began to feel much clearer. Concentrating, Naruto flew up, and all the Goodadam balls appeared behind him. Despite the loss of the fox, the strength of the sage was still with him, which could not but rejoice. At least one Padlianka fate did not put him. After examining the place where he had previously been lying, the guy whistled. Now a new crater has appeared in the forest, 4 meters deep. The epicenter was the body of Uzumaki, which was quite clearly imprinted in the ground. After checking the area in the next kilometer for the presence of strangers, Naruto formed a Rasengan in his hand, which he increased to the size of a basketball, and released it over the place where he had previously been lying. There was nothing to be done about the crater, but the imprint of his own body had to be got rid of. A simple Rasengan did the job pretty well, creating a small mini crater. And what to do? The Uzumaki thought, assessing the situation in which he found himself, without any joking comments. Still, something had to be done, but Naruto didn't know what yet. There weren't many ideas, he couldn't even guess where he was. He did not feel familiar chakra, only something remotely reminiscent of his comrades, but these sources were very far from him. Nearby there were 3 small villages, in which there were no more than 30 shinobi in total, and even then, most of them were at the level of weak chunin. Konoha or any other way to feel it did not work out, which led to the idea that he got into the past, apparently, even before the founding of Konoha, the Cloud and other villages. Or he was thrown so far into the future, where all the villages were destroyed, and some follower of Sasuke rules the world, controlling everything alone. The first option was more logical, but knowing his own luck, the guy expected anything. To begin with, it was necessary to find at least someone who could answer his questions, and it was necessary to eat somewhere. In addition to some settlements, Naruto still felt about 20 shinobi at a distance of several kilometers, moving in different directions, as well as some accumulation of chakra in one place, which constantly fluctuated, making it clear that a fight was taking place there now. Let's see what's going on. Naruto sighed as he removed the goddamn balls but kept one just in case. Pushing off from the air, Uzumaki at great speed flew in the right direction. He covered several kilometers in a few seconds, without even getting tired. If not for the hermit mode, then he would hardly have succeeded in such a trick. Once near the clearing, the guy hid all his chakra, watching the actions of his opponents and listening to the dialogue. 3 dark-haired guys, whose chakra very much resembled Sasuke, were crowding some blue-haired girl. She didn't have any chances, which could be understood without even feeling the hearts of others. Water Dragon and Water Clone are the only techniques that the girls showed. Techniques, in terms of their strength, were at the level of rank B, and maybe a little higher, but she did not have enough chakra to throw out something else like that. When, as Naruto already realized, the Uchiha raised his katana for the final blow, he decided to intervene. Concentrating chakra on his hand, Uzumaki moved to the girl, stopping the katana with his palm. If a little more chakra had been poured into it, he could now lose his arm, but the Uchiha clearly did not expect this, and therefore missed his opportunity to deprive a new opponent of his arm. Reckless, but that didn't really bother him anymore. Well or not. Trying to make his own appearance epic, Naruto got into the dialogue, watching the guy's actions. Meeting his gaze, the Uzumaki stared at the Sharingan with 2 tomo. An eyebrow arched in surprise, and a chuckle just wanted to escape. Sasuke would have laughed at this guy, several times, until he awakened the 3rd tomo from hating the guy. To have 2 tomo at that age is embarrassing, Uchiha. The Uchiha wanted to jump away, but Naruto grabbed the katana tightly, not letting go. Letting go of the weapon, the guy increased the distance between them, folding the seals in the air. The 2 guys who had been standing behind all this time echoed their comrade, also starting to fold the seals for the technicians. A few seconds later, 2 fire dragons and 1 huge fireball flew towards the Uzumaki. Having moved to the tree from which he had been watching what was happening all this time, Naruto carefully put the girl there, who, apparently, had not yet departed from such a spectacular appearance of the guy. Wait here. If you try to escape, I'll find you and kill you, the guy said without ceasing to smile, amused by the girl's reaction. She swallowed and nodded, trying not to show her fear of such a strong enemy. It would seem that just a second ago she was ready to say goodbye to life, but someone saves her, and then this savior calmly declares that he will kill her. Don't worry, I'll finish them quickly. Coming out of the forest, Naruto attracted the attention of the Uchiha, who frantically tried to understand where the enemy had disappeared, but they apparently did not have sensors, and their eyes were not strong enough to see the chakra flows in the forest. Especially, a person whose chakra merges with the surrounding nature. And now I suggest you all calm down and answer a few of my questions. Depending on your answers, a decision will be made regarding the preservation of your lives. Without removing a kind smile, the guy said, heading towards the enemies. He felt the tension and fear emanating from them very clearly, and such extraordinary behavior simply unsettled him. Few people with such a kind smile say they will kill. Why do you need that girl? There was no answer, which couldn't help but annoy Naruto. The guy did not want to waste his time on them from the word at all. Twisting the katana in his hand, Uzumaki threw it at the guy on the right. He, not expecting such a trick, dodged at the last second, going to the side, but the enemy suddenly appeared next to him and instantly grabbed him by the neck. Do you think it would be hard for me to kill you all? The guy asked, hiding his smile, picking up the katana sticking out of the ground and piercing the guy's body with it. Letting go of the Uchiha's neck, Naruto fired a bolt of lightning through the weapon, finishing off the boy. I think one is enough for me to get answers to my questions. Which one of you should be left? One of the Uchihas began to seal the seals, preparing another fire elemental technique, but he did not succeed in finishing it. Naruto was immediately at his side, smashing the Uchiha's body into the ground with his Rasengan. Turning to the third guy, who had recently been ridiculed for his weak Sharingan, Uzumaki raised an eyebrow in question, waiting for some kind of reaction. We were offered a task in a nearby village to capture this girl with a huge reward for completing it. She killed a distant relative of one of the local rich and blew up his house. The Uchiha replied, clenching his fists with force. The defeat of some clanless guy, about whom there was no information before, hit his pride hard, but he could not do anything. He would rather save his life for the sake of his family than die because of his own pride. Frowning, Naruto approached the boy and began to fold the seals. Touching the neck, he brought out on it the seal of silence that had previously stood on each of the fighters of the route. An exact copy of the girl that Uzumaki had recently saved appeared from the ground. Having cut off the head of the copy, the guy sealed it and threw the scroll to the Uchiha. He will still need this girl, and if she is hunted, it will not lead to anything good. Go back and give this head to your employer. You have a seal of silence on you, and if you only try to say anything about me or that girl, you will die. Naruto smiled fervently, folding another series of seals and putting a second seal on his neck, the seal of submission. As it turned out, Danzo had quite a few interesting techniques that help control people. And once you've tweaked them, you can do whatever you want. Now the seal on the body is not visible, and since the shinobi cannot say anything about it, no one will find it. Your comrades died in the battle with her, you burned the bodies. You'd better choose death, Uchiha. Only now did the guy fully understand what he signed up for. If now he gives that person the head of the killed one, and after some time they see it, the Uchiha clan will be accused of deceit, which will greatly undermine his reputation. And the head of the clan will punish him, and maybe even kill him. The clan will never have people discrediting its reputation. Every Uchiha knew this, and therefore fought to the very end, spitting on the fear of death and defending their own pride and the pride of the clan. Watching the guy approach each of his teammates, take out their eyes, and then destroy the body, made the Uchiha only clench his fists with force. He could not oppose him now, he was too weak to fight such a monster. Looking at the scroll, which contained the head of their victim, the guy swallowed, preparing for death. It would be better for him to actually die than to betray his own clan and family. He thought that they would just let him go, so he decided to tell the guy everything. How wrong he was. This guy had no intention of killing any of them in the first place. He must have planned everything a long time ago, and this circus was only for his own amusement. To him, they were just mosquitoes that buzzed over his ear for too long. Nothing would have changed even if they had told the whole truth at the very beginning, saving their own lives. I can't frame my own clan. The Uchiha took out 2 kunai, with which he immediately pierced his own eyes, depriving his enemy of 2 more Sharingan. Ignoring the incredible pain, the boy pulled out another kunai, which he stabbed through his own throat. Forgive me, my family. Naruto turned around in surprise, watching as the Uchiha first wounded his own eyes, and then completely killed himself. Approaching the body, the guy took a small pouch that his enemy had, after which he destroyed the body. He acted like a true patriot, for which this shinobi could be respected, but for this he came to his senses too late. Pride was more important to the Uchiha than life, but this guy remembered it too late. Because of the fear of death, he could not think logically, and therefore did not give the right orders. He should have ordered his comrades to destroy their eyes and then commit suicide. Slowly walking towards the girl who hadn't moved from her seat, Naruto examined the prey in his hand. Luckily, all the things that were in the spatial pockets were with him, so finding a few containers for Sharingan was not a problem. They were only with 2 tomo, but you can get a lot of money for this. They didn't have any protectors, just embroidered with the clan's emblem. So I'm in the past, before Konoha came along. What is your name? Naruto turned to the girl, but noticing that she had fallen asleep, he only snorted. Wasted too much chakra, plus the fear of an enemy vastly superior to her. I didn't want to wake the girl up, but staying here wasn't an option either. After creating a clone, Naruto disappeared, ordering to follow him. As soon as they stopped in the nearest village, the money that the Uchiha had should have provided them with a room for one night, and there should have been enough for food. And when the girl wakes up, then Uzumaki will talk to her. And talk seriously. Arc I. Chapter 3 The tension in the room was already beginning to frankly annoy the guy. The girl woke up a few minutes ago and now just sat and was silent, getting incredible pleasure from studying her own knees. Naruto, on the other hand, twirled the kunai in his hand, waiting for the moment when his victim looked up at him. The victim, by the way, according to Naruto, was quite a pretty person, blue hair, reaching approximately to the shoulder blades, brown eyes that she hid from the guy, not wanting to meet his gaze. The girl was dressed in a simple turtleneck, under which a white t-shirt was visible, and black tight pants. She looked about 17, maybe a little older. The clothes were obviously not intended for long hikes or battles. There was too little protective equipment. Yes, and it was torn in several places, which was reminiscent of the recent battle. Perhaps the girl simply did not have money for clothes, although if Naruto correctly represents the time in which he fell, it is not surprising. Normal equipment, like that of the same Uchiha, was possessed only by clans, and each had its own individual, which no one wanted to share. It was very difficult to find any normal equipment at an affordable price on the market. The clans obviously did not make money by selling clothes. "Why do you need me?" the girl said, daring to raise her eyes and look at the guy. Mentally patting her, Naruto looked at the clock that hung on the wall. Less than 20 minutes had passed since her awakening, and she had already decided to say something, and even the first to start a dialogue. "What is your name?" Uzumaki turned to the girl, trying to make his face as friendly as possible so as not to show his annoyance. He did not really need this girl, and he could calmly get rid of her or let her float freely, imposing a seal of silence, but there was a good chance to get information that Naruto did not want to lose. So now he patiently sat and waited for the girl to be able to squeeze out at least something informative from herself. "Matsumoto Setsuko." The girl introduced herself, nervously fiddling with the sheet next to her. "And you?" "Naruto Uzumaki." Naruto replied calmly, and was about to ask another question, but the girl's reaction made him stop. She, raising an eyebrow in surprise, stared blankly at the blonde, not daring to ask her question. "Is there something wrong?" "Your hair color." The girl pointed at the guy's hair with her finger. Naruto stared at Setsuko for 10 seconds before realizing what she meant. True, the reaction still remained strange, because there are half-breeds and not everyone has red hair, and she looked at him as something that a priori cannot exist. Half-breed. What year and month is it? The boy quickly changed the subject, not wanting to waste any time. After the girl named the date, Naruto was convinced of the correctness of his assumptions. He really ended up in the past, about 2 years before the founding of Konoha. After that, the girl spoke a little about the situation in the country as a whole, and some superficial information about herself. Naruto set himself the goal almost immediately to find his clan, which was destroyed in that world even before his birth. Setsuko, on the other hand, the guy decided to take with him for the time being. Maybe he could help with something. If anything, then he would just let her go. But the problem was this: since Uzumaki's village was closed, no one knew how to get into it, and where the entrance was at all. And how and where to look for representatives of this clan Naruto also did not know, which was quite a big problem. To the surprise of the guy, Setsuko turned out to be a rather useful informant, because due to wandering from one settlement to another, she knew quite a lot of rumors, legends and interesting facts that could be heard somewhere in a pub from several drunken men. In general, the girl knew quite a lot of tales, quite popular among ordinary people. Now the guy was sitting with the girl in one of the few cafes that were in this small village. And Naruto is not surprised that she knew so many rumors and tales. In just an hour that they have been sitting here, Uzumaki has already heard about 5 stories about some phenomena that the world has never seen before. It was quite interesting to listen to them. But still their unreality was repulsive. The atmosphere in this establishment was quite pleasant. Hanging on the walls were paintings of various animals that Naruto had never seen, creating the effect of some kind of mystery in which he wanted to stay. The young girl who worked as a waitress and the bartender behind the counter, dressed in rather extravagant outfits depicting animals whose heads hung on the walls, were new to the Uzumaki. He himself did not understand what was happening to him, but with every second spent in this institution, the mood rose incredibly. Looking at his companion, the blonde only chuckled. Setsuko sat in her seat and did not move, her eyes fixed on the plate that had previously contained her dinner. Naruto sincerely did not understand what was happening to this girl and why she was behaving like that, but this did not really bother him. They are not friends, not even comrades, so let them cope with their troubles on their own. "Go to your room, I'll be there soon," the guy said calmly, watching the girl nod humbly, and slowly getting up from her seat, she follows to the exit. She was too submissive, as if she was afraid that she would be killed if she did something wrong or disobeyed the order. Sighing heavily, the boy stared at the plate that Setsuko had been staring at just a minute ago, as if she saw something unusual there, and not a plate slightly dirty because of the sauce, on which there were a few crumbs of bread. For him, such an attitude, in fact, was something new, unknown. Not to say that Naruto liked it, but it also didn't annoy or disgust him. There is nothing strange in the fact that the weak are afraid of the strong, no, but now there was just such a situation. Stretching, the guy got up from his chair, heading to the next table, at which 3 men were sitting, discussing something very loudly and violently. None of them were dangerous, there weren't even jonins among them, and 3 chunins would not be able to oppose him. "Good evening, gentlemen." Naruto smiled as he sat down at the table with the men whose stories he'd been listening to all this time. The trio smiled amiably, extending their hands to greet their interlocutor. The guy only grunted, shaking hands with everyone, after which he put a small bag of money on the table. "It will be yours if you help me with one thing." "And what do you want, buddy?" The eldest of the trio immediately answered. The man looked to be about 45 years old, maybe a little more. Several battle scars on his face and a stern eye immediately showed that not just anyone was sitting opposite Naruto, but a man who had gone through a huge number of battles and had seen life. The cat left the scars, most likely. The Uzumaki mentally snorted, watching with interest the man's every action. Despite the fact that in itself his interlocutor was nothing of himself, he managed to create the image of an experienced warrior perfectly. Yukikov's P.F. was still missing to complete the image. "I just need to find at least one member of a not-so-famous clan renowned for their mastery of Fuinjutsu." He pulled out a few coins from Naruto's pouch and pushed them so that they fell exactly to the interlocutor's hand. The man, taking the coin, looked at it for a few seconds, after which he grinned contentedly, putting it in his pocket. "I want to know the place and time where he will appear. But I'm warning you now. I will kill you if you try to deceive me and give false information. I hate betrayal, you know?" "Release some ki." Naruto smiled as he watched the man begin to tremble, who a few seconds ago posed as a pretentious first-class shinobi, clearly parodying the red-eyed ones, although they did it better, and at least they possessed some kind of power. And this one is just a chunin who had the unfortunate luck of contacting the Uzumaki. In the port city of Mizuno-Kuni, an annual swordsmanship competition is held, in which people from absolutely all over the world take part. For 2 years in a row, one red-haired boy has taken first place. Personally, he did not recognize his own belonging to the Uzumaki clan, but absolutely all factors indicate that this is exactly the case. Overcoming his fear, the man began to tell, twisting a coin in his hand. He did not doubt the reliability of the information, because he himself participated in this tournament and fought with that guy. "The tournament starts in a month, so you can make it if you go out today or tomorrow. Nearby is a port town, from which the ships go directly to the place you need. The city where the tournament takes place is called Asakusa." "Thanks." Naruto chuckled, leaving the bag on the table and rising from his chair. Patting the man's shoulder several times, the blonde placed a teleport mark on him. Leaving the establishment, he trudged towards the hotel where Setsuko was. To be honest, he didn't know what to do with her. It was useless to take it with you. It would only be ballast and would not allow you to move quickly. Information from her was no longer required, so her usefulness was now equal to 0. He did not want to kill the girl, he simply did not need it. The death of some kind of clanless will not give him anything, he will only stain his hands once again. Since when did I start killing people for nothing? Stopping at the mirror in the corridor of the hotel, the guy asked himself, peering into his own reflection. He did not want to become a soulless doll, ready to kill a person just like that, even if he did nothing to him. After he dealt with those 3 red-eyed, killing 2, and forcing the 3rd to commit suicide, Naruto stopped understanding what was happening to him. The image of the ANBU fighter began to take over, depriving the guy of the last drop of humanity. He never wanted to kill people just like that, just because they did not please him in some way. He always believed that in any situation, through dialogue, you can come to some kind of agreement, because killing always entails killing, and this is what he wanted to prevent in the past world, which he almost succeeded in. "I'll just let her go, I just don't need to do anything with her," Naruto decided, forcing out a smile that hadn't left his face before. He succeeded in smiling, but it was clearly not what he wanted. It was very similar, but still not the same. He saw too many falsehoods there. If my mother saw me now, she would definitely hit me on the head. I don't think she would like that smile. Perhaps it's not too late to fix everything and try to be the same as before. Naruto really hoped he could do it. He didn't know what had suddenly come over him. He served in the ANBU for so long, absolutely not thinking about it, taking reality as the norm, and now he suddenly decided that everything should be returned to the way it was before. Logic, according to Sakura, is my weakest point. Naruto smiled at his thoughts as he continued to look at his reflection. This time he liked the smile clearly more, but it's still not what it was before. Commentary on Arc-I, Chapter 3. Since school has begun, chapters will be released less often. Archi. Chapter 4 Commentary on Archi. Chapter 4. To be honest, I am in deep shock from such an asset at this job. To get 500 plus likes in a week is just incredible, as for me. I'm glad that so many people like the work. Thank you very much for the comments and the asset, it encourages me to spend my free time writing chapters. And here is the next chapter. The whole next week is as busy as possible for me, so it's not a fact that there will be a continuation, but on the weekends I'll try to sit down and write another chapter. Happy reading. Grinning, the boy repeated his last sentence once more, watching the girl's reaction. Which, by the way, did not understand anything at all. Just an hour ago, they were sitting quietly and having dinner, and now she is being told this. No, she certainly knew that something like this was about to happen. But obviously not the way it happened, and not so early. So you give me the money and just leave? No stamps or anything? The image of a ruthless killer, with whom the girl initially associated the guy, began to slowly break down. She sincerely did not understand what was happening now, and why the guy was behaving like that. Maybe he had a drink there when she left? Or is under the influence of a genjutsu? Exactly. The guy nodded calmly, placing a bag of money and a few bills that he found in the bags of dead Uchihas on the table. Naruto got rich pretty well thanks to the 3 red-eyed ones, which could not but please the guy. He did not keep much money for himself, only for a trip to the port city of the country of water. They didn't say the name, but they sincerely assured that if they talk about the tournament, they will immediately understand it. This guy needs to be tested. Can you please explain to me what's going on right now? Is this a joke or what? Setsuko frowned more and more, sensing some kind of catch that the guy had not yet mentioned. The smile never left Naruto's face, which couldn't help but irritate the girl even more. She does not understand anything, and it also amuses him? Dabi is free. The Uzumaki shrugged, obviously mocking the girl, who thought there must be a catch somewhere. But he doesn't exist, so the search for the non-existent could not but amuse the guy who just recently didn't know what to do next and got confused in himself. Okay, I went. It's dark now. Wait at least until morning, the girl said sincerely. Despite all the cruelty that she saw from this guy, he did nothing to her. Didn't hurt, didn't force me to do anything against my will. The only thing he did was to keep her close to him, and that was it. And that didn't last long. Only now, when the man who saved her life decided to leave, did she realize how much she owed him for everything. If not for him, she would have been dead by now. Here's some hair dye for you. It is made from special plants and preparations that help change the natural color of the hair. They will look for you, so at least dye your hair and cut your hair. The guy ignored the words of the girl, continuing to take out some scrolls from the spatial pocket and print them out. And here are several techniques of your element. I studied them a long time ago, so I no longer need them, but you might need them. After sealing everything back, Naruto glanced at the girl who was sitting on the bed, her knees pressed to her and hugging them. The one who screamed just a minute ago was now sitting quite calmly, thinking about something very strongly and shuddering at the same time. The blonde walked over to the blue weasel, putting his hand on her head and lifting it up so that their eyes met. What happened to you? Naruto asked without taking his eyes off the girl's eyes, feeling some fear on the part of the girl. She looked away, muttered something very quietly, then removed the guy's hand from her head and stood up. Taking a few steps back, the guy looked at Setsuko in surprise, not really understanding what she was going to do now and why she was in such a state a few seconds ago. Thank you for everything, I was glad to meet you. The girl smiled tightly, going up to the guy and hugging him. Naruto froze in surprise, unable to respond to the hug in any way. He himself did not understand what had happened to him now, and why he fell into a stupor because of such a harmless gesture on the part of the girl. We'll see each other again. The guy came to his senses, hugging the girl in response. After standing like that for a few more seconds, Naruto released the girl, turning around and heading towards the window. Shinobi don't need doors, as the saying goes. With one last glance at Setsuko, the blonde jumped out of the window, then ran in the right direction. You just want to seem bad, the girl said into the void, lying down in bed and getting ready for bed. No matter what, she needs to survive to meet him one more time. And next time it will be her turn to save, but for this you need to train and improve a lot. She was just lucky that then, on the field, he chose the weak side and defended it, without any selfish goals. Yes, he needed information, but it was so superficial that he could get it from absolutely anyone, as he did today in a bar, having received information about Uzumaki, about which she knew nothing. He's a strange guy, no matter how you look at it. The picture before my eyes blurred, not even having time to gather entirely. The speed was incredibly fast. Weak shinobi will most likely not even notice how a body runs next to them. Only the wind and dust that Naruto kicked up behind him could give away his location to the enemy. But even so, it was simply impossible to get him in this mode. The Sage mode, in addition to the ability to fly, increased all the characteristics several times, making the already high speed simply incredible and incomprehensible. In this state, he could easily cross the sea in an hour and reach Mizuno Kuni, which was 2 or 3 weeks sailing by ship. Having reached a certain port, where there were several small boats for 2, maybe 3 people and 1 small ship, Naruto braked sharply, almost crashing into this very ship and breaking it through with his body. There were several small stalls near the shore, in which people slept carelessly. "And not afraid to die in your sleep?" Naruto looked skeptically at the men, trying to find at least some kind of barrier that would protect them or an average-level shinobi watching from the side or from the same ship. But there was no one around. These people really just went to bed without fear for their lives. It's kind of stupid. Approaching one of the men, the blonde woke him up, after which he began to wait for the moment when he would regain consciousness. He could get there on his own, but now he just wanted to sail on a ship, feeling all the sea delights of life. He came to his senses pretty quickly, and after a minute the man began to answer the guy's questions. The answers were clearly not encouraging. The last ship sailed from the pier in the afternoon, and the next one will not be until tomorrow afternoon. None of those present here knew exactly how to get to the city he needed, so it was pointless to wake the others. After finally asking the direction in which the ship set sail, Uzumaki allowed the man to fall back into the sleep he clearly deserved. Taking the map that was sticking out of his bag from the man, Naruto placed it on the table and opened it. The differences were immediately apparent. The absence of a huge number of cities that will later become the capitals of some countries. No hidden villages as such. The map showed only small provinces and cities, which were mostly capitals of countries or port points. Rolling up the map and putting it back into his bag, the boy looked up. The night sky was surprisingly clear. There were no nebulae, no stars. Only a single moon hung in the sky, illuminating the whole world with its dim light and reflected in the water. Naruto broke into a happy smile as he remembered his trip to the moon with his friends. This was probably the most unusual of his travels, apart from jumping from one world to another during the fight with Kaguya. That mission meant a lot to him. It was then that he noticed Hinata's feelings, but did not attach importance to them, citing the usual love that a considerable part of Konoha's girls had. But Hinata was not like them. Too bad he figured it out too late. Perhaps if he had taken the girl seriously, then he would have responded to her feelings, and now he would not be in some strange world, but would be with his girlfriend. But these are only dreams that he will never be able to realize. He's here now, and Hinata isn't even in the plans. There is not even a person in the plans who will have Hinata in the plans. It's funny, actually, to be aware of the whole situation he's in right now. Those who were his grandfathers by age were not even born now. Yes, he may even be older than Madara and Hashirama. Find them in this world more. Or let them find it better, it will obviously be easier. But there is simply no point in looking for each other now. They don't even know about Naruto's existence and his power, which he's about to show the world soon. It is for this that he wants to get into Yuzushiogakure no Sato. To show their own strength, due to which this village will rise. Like in Konoha, they will have one monster capable of defeating about 1,000 shinobi on their own. Naruto himself did not really understand why he so much wanted to get into this village, which he knew only from data from the archives and stories of Kurama, whose first Jinchuriki was Mito Uzumaki, the daughter of Kage Yuzushiyo and the wife of the future first Hokage. Knowledge was limited to a banal knowledge of the laws, the education system, and the ranking of shinobi. In this regard, Uzumaki clearly went the farthest to come up with their own shinobi ranking system, moreover, working. The disappearance of such a strong village for Naruto remained a secret behind 7 castles. Even in Root's archives, there was absolutely no record of an attack on this village. It was just that in the evening there was a mighty village, and in the morning only ruins and a barrier were left of it, hiding these very ruins from prying eyes. The guy wanted to understand all this and not let this happen. He wants to protect his mother's clan, because if she were alive, she would have done the same. Uzumaki greatly value their own blood and protect each other, regardless of their relationship to each other. This clan does not tolerate betrayal, immediately punishing the guilty. We'll have to run. Naruto drawled out of his thoughts, looking in the direction in which he would have to run. After saturating his legs with chakra, he jerked from his place, rushing through the water at great speed and causing waves to diverge from the places he had just run through. Despite the fact that the ship sailed in the afternoon, it advanced a fairly good distance, to which the guy had to run for several minutes, without reducing the crazy speed. When the ship came into view, Naruto slowed down and jumped onto the ship much more calmly, where he was immediately surrounded from several sides, putting spears to his body. Arc I. Chapter 5 Whistling in surprise, the boy looked around at the people present. 7 men surrounded him with spears, and 6 more stand behind him, preparing for some kind of technique. And somewhere above, the strong chakra of another shinobi was felt, which, apparently, was the main one here. "I'm not your enemy," Naruto said calmly, clearly not wanting to get into a fight that these shinobi might not come out of alive. The ringleader, who had been somewhere in the sky all this time in some way incomprehensible to the guy, went downstairs, being next to the blonde. Everyone immediately removed their spears, waiting for instructions from their leader. "My name is Mamoru Hatake." A young man in his mid-20s introduced himself, looking at Naruto. Uzumaki himself was doing the same, carefully peering into the face of the guy who appeared to him. Ash hair, like that of the former sensei Uzumaki, lived a life of its own, scoring on its owner and dispersing in all possible directions. Green eyes scrutinized the boy in return, while both were silent, and the rest did not risk getting into this silent battle. A sly smile completed the image of a young shinobi. "Why did you come here?" Without waiting for the name of the interlocutor, Mamoru continued, watching every action of the intruder. The blonde continued to stand still, not reacting to the guy's words, but literally a second later the guy woke up and rubbed his head, smiling guiltily. "My name is Naruto. I just didn't have time for a flight, so I decided to catch up with you," the Uzumaki replied calmly, noticing how several guys relaxed a little after his answer and such a sharp change in behavior. Mamoru ordered everyone to put away their weapons, after which he extended his hand to the guy for a handshake. They took Naruto on the ship quite calmly, without any problems. Yes, and most of them felt his strength, so if he wants to kill them, he will simply kill them, and now they have nothing to be afraid of, in principle, since he does not touch them. Everyone immediately went to bed, and the next day there was an acquaintance with a new guest. As it turned out, from the Hatake clan there was only the captain of the ship Mamoru, while the rest were ordinary people who go to the country of water for the sake of the same competition as the Uzumaki himself. Only they, unlike the guy, will only observe and place bets. Having learned that their new acquaintance would participate in this very tournament, several men rubbed their hands contentedly, already knowing who they would bet on. They even asked not to show their strength until some point, so that the odds for his victory would increase, and in return they promised to share part of the profit. Naruto didn't agree, but he didn't say no either, so there was still a chance to get rich. Why Hatake was the captain of the ship Uzumaki did not understand, but he always forgot to ask, starting a dialogue with someone else. In addition to the men and boys heading for this competition, there were several other girls who fled the Fire Land after their settlement was destroyed during one of the interclan wars. The young girls were the last representatives of some small clan living somewhere near the territory of the Uchiha clan. Representatives of such a clan Naruto not only did not see, but never heard of them, although according to the description of the features, they were quite interesting shots. Naruto had never seen such a relationship with the element in his world, even among the same Kage. In fact, these girls were some kind of elementals, which are written about in some fantasy or fairy tales, but for such girls to really exist, it was a huge shock for the guy. This, perhaps, he could see in the Hozuki clan, but they had a relationship with only one element water, and the girl clan had at least 2. It is a pity that only 3 representatives of this clan remained, 18-year-old twins Miya and Maya and 15-year-old Kitsumi. In such a friendly company, all 2 weeks of the journey passed, after which the team arrived on the island they needed. The journey was quite interesting and fun for Naruto, considering how one of the guys tried to glue Maya, who was hiding behind Uzumaki, somehow as subtly and originally sewing away, while never repeating herself. Numerous stops were also quite an interesting comedy. Naruto never thought that he would save his new acquaintance from 3 girls who were interested in this very acquaintance. The reason why the blonde was asked for help in getting rid of the girls was never given, but at any mention of those 3 persons, Cyrus's face turned green and his eye began to twitch. Apparently, there was clearly something for which life did not prepare him. Speaking of Mei, after Naruto saved her from some jonin at one of the stops, simply knocking him out with one blow, the girl fell in love with the guy and tried to spend all the time with him. Uzumaki was pleased with such attention, but he did not feel any feelings for the girl, except for friendship, and the image of Hinata did not want to disappear from his head, always appearing before his eyes and reminding him of the past that he was trying to abandon. So he could not respond in any way to Mai's suddenly appeared feelings. With interest, Naruto began to inspect the pier they had arrived at. It differed from the one from which their ship set out, at least in that it looked like a pier, and not a shore, along which there are several ships and boats. Pretty good for that time, everything was equipped, and the buildings were clearly not the same stalls, in one of which a man slept, who told the guy where the ship had gone. In general, the first impression of the country of water was positive. After unloading all the things, of which there were not so many, Naruto looked around his entire squad, of which he somehow became the head. The arena where the tournament will be held was located in a neighboring town, which was a day's journey for ordinary civilians, and alone the guy could get in an hour, but he did not want to leave new acquaintances, and he was in no hurry anywhere. There are still 2 weeks before the competition, so there was plenty of time. You can buy souvenirs as a keepsake. We'll meet in the same place in an hour, Naruto said calmly, climbing the tree and closing his eyes. Everyone immediately left in a hurry, wanting to find what they had been dreaming of the whole trip. Healing water. In these parts was quite cheap because it was scooped from a protected lake. In their world, this very lake no longer existed, only a small pond remained, the water in which had long ago spent its healing properties. So, it was inexpensive here, but there were few places to find it, and it was sold in limited quantities. But if you believe the words of Kai, then somewhere here is his acquaintance, who prepared goods especially for him. It was a distant relative of a man who had been living for a long time in the territory of the country of water. Upon arrival in the land of fire, Kai was going to sell most of the water that he would receive from an acquaintance at an inflated price to one of his old acquaintances, who increased the already increased price several times more. The peasant earned quite well on this, judging by the clothes in which he walked. And people who don't earn enough money would hardly have overcome such a distance for the sake of some kind of swordsmanship tournament. Moreover, bet on it. Having plunged into the subconscious, the guy went to one of the open doors of the cage, sitting down on the ground. A small red fox immediately appeared nearby, jumping onto the guy's outstretched palm. He discovered this tiny clot of Kyuubi's chakra during the first conversation with Mamoru on the ship, feeling a small surge inside him. This Kurama was some 10,000th part of the real fox, which could be understood by its size and by the amount of chakra. This little fox also did not have a mind, and he could not share his chakra. So, he was just a tame animal living in the subconscious. Perhaps if the real Kyuubi was around, the fox would also become a little larger, but Naruto could not verify this yet. Feeding some of his own chakra into his hand, the guy grinned, watching the fox running around him, somehow trying to put out the fire that appeared on his tail, which, by the way, was alone. At some point, the fox cub realized that it did not burn, and the fire was just a weak illusion. Looking displeased at the owner, Kurama Jr. ran in his direction, hitting the wall, because the guy himself disappearing from the subconscious. Opening his eyes, Naruto looked in surprise at some guy who was trying to steal one of the bags lying under the tree, on whose branch he had been lying all this time. Apparently, he unconsciously switched to Sannin mode, because the guy did not notice him, lying on a branch that was only 2 meters above him. "Everything is fine?" Naruto asked as he jumped off the branch, amused at the boy's shocked face. He nodded and ran off without saying a word. Following the back of the fleeing thief, Uzumaki checked the nearby area. Everyone slowly approached the camp, just in time for the appointed time. With the punctuality of the guys, everything was apparently good. Everyone arrived at the appointed time, except that one guy was a few minutes late, having been delayed due to getting lost along the way. The decision to advance was made instantly, so the group immediately moved in the right direction. Kai was the guide, though Naruto could find the path himself, relying solely on the ability of the sensor. The twins walked in front, along with Kai. The guy himself walked in the center, scanning an equal distance around the entire squad, although with his coverage radius he could go anywhere else. Kitsumi closed the formation. The path passed quite calmly and without any incidents, which could not but rejoice. They did not arrange halts, waiting for sunset. As soon as the sun began to go below the horizon, the Uzumaki ordered to set up camp in a small clearing, which turned out to be not far from them. Having set up camp, they began to determine the duty officers for the night. The strongest shinobi in the squad were 3 relatives and Naruto, so they got the duty. It didn't take long to determine. Mia volunteered first, after which Kitsumi, and then Maya. Well, the last duty went to the guy. Out of habit, the guy climbed a tree near the camp, settling down comfortably and falling asleep. If an enemy approaches, he will wake up, he had no doubt about that. Working in the ANBU will not teach you that. The group looked at the guy in surprise, noticing how he instantly went limp, falling asleep. Good night, everyone, Kir said, trying to hug Maya, but she cleverly dodged and climbed into her tent, wishing sweet dreams in return. Sighing sadly, to the friendly laughter of men, the guy climbed into his tent, throwing an envious look at the Uzumaki. Commentary on Arc-I, Chapter 5. If you say that there are a lot of errors in fanfiction, please point them out. And then I don't understand what I wrote wrong and what needs to be changed. I don't deny that there are logical errors here. I think that there will be quite a lot of them. But it's better to indicate where they are, and not just say that there are any. I write fanfiction to be read in a relaxed way. That's why I ask you to point out any obvious mistakes. Arc-I, Chapter 6 Incredibly strong, Kai stated, watching the battle of the permanent favorite of this tournament. How many years has this guy been winning this tournament dry, taking the main prize? Moreover, without receiving any injuries at all throughout the battles. Uzumaki are monsters. Kir supported his acquaintance, looking towards Naruto, who was waiting for the start of his battle. The guy stood calmly, leaning against the wall and examining the sword in his hands. I wonder what Naruto-san will show. Of course, he can't compare with Uzumaki, but he's still worth trying. No wonder he came here. Naruto-san is the strongest shinobi I've ever known. His chakra is just incredible, the man said distantly, noticing Kir's surprised look. He understood without any extra words. None of them sensed Naruto's chakra, not even a trace of it, but his appearance on the ship clearly indicated otherwise. You know, they say that you don't feel a person's chakra only in two cases. In the first, he has a catastrophically little of it, and in the second, you have a catastrophically little of it, in comparison with him. Are you saying that Naruto-san is several times superior to everyone who was with us on that ship? In response, having received only an affirmative nod, Cyrus looked in surprise towards the arena, where the object of their discussion entered the battlefield along with the previous semi-finalist. The meaning of Kai's words came to the guy only when Naruto's rival fell to the ground in a second, and the blonde himself was behind the blade, which was in the sheath, defeated with his hand on the hilt. Everything happened so fast that no one even had time to understand what had happened. What I was talking about. Kai chuckled, rubbing his hands. No wonder he put on this ambiguous boy. The town met the group with open arms and merchants trying to shove everything at triple the price to the guests, who were absolutely at every turn, and wanting a lot of money. The event was truly grand for the size of this town, if there had already been so many spectators and swordsmen here in a week. The group settled in one large hotel, occupying 4 of them in one room. How much Kira's face was distorted when Naruto settled with 3 girls in one room. Moreover, the initiator was not a blonde, but one twin who wanted to get to know the guy better. She did not succeed, but Kira was now envious, which could not help but amuse the Uzumaki. There were no problems with registration. The questionnaire, a small fee, and Naruto were added to the list of main participants, giving him a token as identification. In what shock were the hosts, and the companions of Uzumaki, when the guy said his last name aloud. At first they wanted to accuse him of hiding his real name and trying to desecrate the Uzumaki family, but then everything somehow calmed down and nothing happened. On the same day, there were quite a lot of questions and indignation from acquaintances, to whom Naruto tactfully did not give his last name. In principle, he did not hide it. In any case, he would have to say sometime, but for some reason he didn't want to burn himself so easily, so no one knew the blonde's last name. Naruto could not meet another representative of this kind. Yes, even just finding it was not possible. Forever somewhere nearby, pockets of chakra blinked, partially reminiscent of his mother's chakra, or rather parts of it, but when he got close to them, they disappeared, as if evaporating. Perhaps this is some kind of barrier to hide. Well, or something else. The guy did not understand the abilities of the Uzumaki at all, so instant disappearances remained a mystery to him. There was a chance to meet him at the pre-tournament training, to which the guy went, but the second Uzumaki was not there. He appeared on the lists, but he did not see the swordsman himself, even though his clone, having merged with nature thanks to Senjutsu, was watching the registration venue under the henge. The very same training, which consisted of sparring random swordsmen, was quite funny for Naruto. Given that he listened to Kai's advice and lost to everyone he could, the guy defeated only a 13-year-old guy who couldn't even hold a sword properly. Fortunately, he was not a participant in the tournament, but simply came to practice. Trained, it's called, He has now learned how to hold a sword, but not yet how to swing it. Due to Naruto's behavior and training, the ratios have increased tremendously. Especially after he lost to his future opponent, failing to even hurt him. The ground for making money was not bad. He will take 40% from Kai at the end of the tournament, so in addition to the main prize, which, compared to the stakes, was nothing, Uzumaki could get a good percentage that he would need in the future. The funniest thing after the training was that Kir really believed that Naruto couldn't fight with swords. He argued this also by the fact that he did not feel his chakra at all throughout the entire time that they were together. Apparently, she was only enough to climb a tree and fall asleep there. As it turned out, no one felt his chakra. There was an option that due to the long journey through the water, which is part of nature, he was in hermit mode all this time, except perhaps without any marks around the eye and changes in the pupil. If this was true, then Uzumaki could only happily rub his hands together, imagining what a shock it would be for his enemies when they realized the true size of their opponent. Well, due to the fact that Kir saw such Naruto during those sparring sessions, he categorically refused to bet on him. He also didn't bet on the guy's opponent, purely out of respect for a new acquaintance. Kai just chuckled, imagining how he would make fun of Cyrus, who would realize too late the fact that he could make good money on the victory of his friend. For some reason, the little man did not even doubt that the blonde, if he did not reach the final, then he would definitely get into the semifinals. He still doubted victory. After all, Uzumaki is strong and has been taking his first place for several years in a row, but he did not doubt that he would be at least some kind of competition. Naruto-kun will win! Maya confidently assured everyone present, not even doubting the victory of her beloved. Such behavior seemed rather reckless and stupid to the guy, but for some reason it seemed to Uzumaki that the girl, unlike all their mutual acquaintances, felt his real strength, but for some reason kept silent about it. She clearly did not create the image of a stupid girl, despite such childish behavior, so Naruto could only wonder why the girl was so confident in his victory. The arena on the day of the tournament was filled to the maximum. Naruto had seen something similar once at the Chunin exams they had in Konoha, although this arena itself was half the size of the one in Konoha, but the number of guests was still amazing. A huge number of representatives of the Hozuki clan that stood in different corners of the arena, controlling everything that happened. The judge was at the level of a strong jonin, but Naruto could not classify him as a clan. The organizers clearly do not want to allow a war, so the defense was at a high level. The tournament itself, as it turned out, was held in 3 stages, which consisted of 1-on-1 fights on the first day, 2-on-2 on the second, and the final, of course, consisted of 1-on-1 fights. The losers were immediately eliminated with no chance to continue the competition, except that in the second stage there was some nomination of audience sympathy, or something like that, allowing the audience to choose the 2 losing swordsmen who can go to the next stage. The competition took place over 3 days, each of which will include 1 stage. The rules seemed pretty good to Naruto, which once again indicated that the safety of the spectators, and everyone else, played a huge role here for the organizers. Chakra could only be used to strengthen the body, strengthen the sword, or speed up, thanks to the feed to the legs. A surge for any other reason meant instant disqualification and defeat. "Good luck, Naruto-kun," Maya said as she stood up on her toes and kissed him on the cheek as she headed towards the stands. Uzumaki did not dodge. After all, now it would be very ugly on his part. The rest limited themselves to words with wishes. Only Kai shook hands with the guy, thanking him in advance for cooperation. First, the participants stood in the middle of the arena, after which they left only the combatants, and the rest went to a special balcony where several guys from the Hozuki clan were standing. The number of participants was limited, so 50 swordsmen were now standing on the balcony, while 2 were fighting below. Naruto, on the other hand, sat comfortably against the wall, watching the battle of the Uzumaki, whom he had been looking for so long. Hiroki Uzumaki was a young man in his 20s with short scarlet hair and long bangs covering his eyes. The blade was a standard katana, with some kind of pattern running all over the blade that looked like a dragon, but it was pretty hard to see from the balcony. In terms of height, he was only slightly taller than Naruto himself, but in terms of equipment, he clearly surpassed the guy, as evidenced by his rather broad shoulders and pumped-up arms. The fight went pretty quickly. The guy defeated his opponent very easily. 2 fast and unexpected movements, which were almost impossible to foresee, played a role, and some man simply could not resist the quick and dodgy Uzumaki. Such a style could not help but impress. It is not surprising that he has been taking first place for several years. He, by the way, did not use chakra at all, having surpassed the enemy simply due to his physical data. As the judge announced the contestants, Naruto's opponent jumped down from the balcony, saturating his legs with chakra and leaving a dent in the ground. The boy obviously underestimated his opponent, since he wasted his chakra so easily, which he would need in battle. Uzumaki decided to go the way for ordinary mortals, that is, go down the stairs, especially since Hiroki managed to meet along the way. "I'd like to talk to you after the first stage." To Naruto's surprise, it was the Uzumaki who spoke first, stopping on the stairs. The blonde also froze, waiting for some kind of continuation, but the guy only wished good luck and continued on his way. Clearing unnecessary thoughts from his head related to the upcoming conversation, the guy entered the arena, slowly heading towards the center, where the judge and his opponent were standing. Laughter erupted around the stadium. Apparently, yesterday's fight was seen by many people present here, which could not but please Naruto. Yesterday's performance would definitely help him, and Kai make money, given that the odds ratio is now 6-1 against the Uzumaki. Having found his colleague in the stands, the blonde only nodded, winking at Mei sitting next to him, which caused a new wave of laughter in the stands. Maya only smiled in response, putting her hands to her chest. "You are ready?" the referee asked as soon as Naruto stood in front of his opponent. He drew his sword from its scabbard, holding it out in front of him and moving one leg back. The Uzumaki just nodded, not even drawing his sword. Now it would be possible to take revenge on the arrogant boy, who all morning teased his opponent, recalling yesterday's defeat. "Have you already given up?" The boy, whose name Naruto didn't remember, chuckled. Ignoring the provocation, the blonde placed his hand on the katana hilt that was peeking out of its scabbard, preparing to end it all with one blow. As soon as the referee announced the start of the fight, the guy pulled out a katana from its scabbard by a centimeter, sharply finding himself behind his opponent and putting the weapon back. The technique he had been taught in the ANBU had come in handy for once in his life. It is a pity that in the other, but still useful. Naruto was not a master of kenjutsu, but thanks to his own speed and excellent control, he was capable of such fleeting strikes that no one was able to notice. The guy's chakra enveloped the entire arena for just a moment, reaching the front rows, but as soon as Naruto realized what had happened, he quickly suppressed it, not allowing him to go any further. In principle, already now the odds for his next fights should change dramatically due to such a trick, but still, I didn't want to reduce them even more due to the fact that everyone will feel some part of his chakra. True, the judge still felt it quite well, like most of the participants, and the Hozuki clearly tensed up, feeling such a strong shinobi at the epicenter of everything that was happening. And the hair color, which did not match the last name, strained even more. After waiting for the announcement of the result, the guy went to the balcony, where the rest of the participants were standing. Several medics ran past Naruto, heading towards his opponent, but the blonde was clearly not up to them now. The upcoming dialogue with Hiroki could not help but strain the uncomprehending Uzumaki. "I ran after him so much, searched, and in the end he called me to talk," Naruto grunted, standing up in an empty seat on the balcony in one of the corners. Further battles did not interest him. Arc I. Chapter 7 The first round ended in the late afternoon, when the sun was already starting to set, and various torches and elemental techniques were illuminating the arena. There was nothing unusual, apart from a few more interesting characters whose abilities were simply amazing, although this pair of shinobi clearly overshadowed all the following battles. Naruto knew that telekinesis existed, but he never thought that he would see it in reality. When the sword was knocked out of the young girl's hands in the first minute of the battle, he thought that this was the end and already turned away, heading towards the old place. However, the unexpectedly quiet crowd clearly indicated that something was wrong here, for always, when the fight ended, applause was heard. Returning to the old place, the blonde saw a weapon hovering in the air, which held the opponent's onslaught, while the girl herself practically clung to the ground, taking out a kunai and planning to end the fight with one blow. The intervention of the judge was unexpected for everyone. It would seem that now he will announce the victory of the girl, so that she does not injure her opponent to death, but the result made the stands calm down for a while, perceiving the information. Disqualification for the use of technology. Yeah, no one thought that everything could end up like this. Nobody began to argue, and the girl only apologized, instantly disappearing from the arena. The speed was truly unbelievable, and if it wasn't for the gaffe of losing her sword, she would have definitely defeated her opponent. Apparently, on reflexes, she pulled the sword to herself, but she could just dodge. The Uzumaki thought, trying to feel the girl in the nearest area, but she was not nearby. Only residual footprints in several places indicated that the girl was there. Naruto did not know what technique she used, for it was clearly not a Shunshin, and even more so a Hiraishin, which was now owned only by the future second Hokage, well, a blonde one. There are so many interesting abilities that few people knew about in my time. And how did people with similar genomes die without leaving any trace in history? The second swordsman that interested the guy was a young boy, about 18 years old in appearance, with purple hair and heterochromia. He was dressed in some kind of black shirt without one sleeve, revealing a view of his hand wrapped in bandages. He also wore long trousers with collars and standard shinobi sandals. The image came out a little strange, but the abilities corresponded to their user. The guy never showed his sword, only once, at the very beginning, touching the hilt of the weapon. Instantly torn clothes and bleeding wounds in different areas of the whole body caused surprise not only for the entire stadium, but also for Naruto, which is not that he did not notice all the blows with the blade, but missed the moment when the boy pulled out his sword. Surprising, in addition to all this, was the fact that the chakra in the boy was the same as in an ordinary civilian who never developed his hearth. Baring his teeth, the boy repeated the same trick one more time, forcing his opponent to fall to his knees, after which the judge announced the result. The remaining battles weren't that boring, just compared to the ability of those two, they didn't stand out in any way. Yes, there were skillful kenjutsu owners who, thanks to their skill, could cut a tree with one blow, but here they did not have a chance against shinobi who knew how to use their skills during sword fighting. Here, it's not even so much the level of sword ownership that decides, but the amount of chakra that can be transmitted through this very sword. If kenjutsu masters need to train for several decades in order to cut a tree with a sword strike, then a chunin just needs to increase his reserve and learn to concentrate it at one point. This will take no more than 2 years, after which trees can be cut with any weapon, regardless of the level of possession of this very weapon. Summed up the Uzumaki at the end of the last battle to date, heading to the center of the arena, where the winners gathered. 26 participants, 13 couples. Apparently those two will have some kind of special test, or they will arrange one battle 3x3, and not 2x2, as planned before. Perhaps somewhere it was written what would happen to a couple that would not get rivals, but Naruto did not read any provisions, and does not plan to. The judge brought a small bag in which there were pieces of paper with numbers. One at a time, the swordsman approached the judge, pulling out pieces of paper and announcing their number. Uzumaki got the 7th number, and a young girl became a partner, having hardly passed to the next stage. Whistling at the sight of the ballast, the boy looked around at the others. Hiroki got on the team with the eggplant guy, as Naruto described him because of his hair color. Yes, luck is clearly not on his side, although few can compete with him. The rules are slightly different in the second round. The referee announced as soon as everyone was in pairs. Everyone calmed down in an instant, giving the arbiter the opportunity to finish the sentence. The time was already late, so no one wanted to stay here longer than 10 minutes. Rather, there are some adjustments. You can now use chakra-based techniques that indirectly affect your opponent, meaning that your technique should not directly affect your opponent, causing them damage. It can be like a change in terrain, or something else. That's all. Everyone can be free. Tomorrow we start at the same time. Everyone began to slowly disperse, saying goodbye to future rivals and wishing them good night. By the way, who will fight with whom is unknown. Only tomorrow morning another draw will be held, which will determine the pairs of those fighting. Hiroki approached Naruto, once again reminding him of their meeting tonight so the boy wouldn't accidentally forget. True, he would hardly be able to forget this. After all, meeting with a relative was the main goal of the blonde. There were certain doubts about going to Yuzushio, but the guy tried not to pay attention to them, sincerely believing that next to his relatives, something in his life would change for the better. Yes, and a banal interest in the life of the Uzumaki clan took an interest that could not be quenched in any other way. Uzumaki-san, I propose to meet tomorrow a few hours before the start, and at least tell each other about their own abilities and come up with several joint techniques. The girl began the dialogue, waiting for her partner to say goodbye to her relative. Naruto smiled weakly before nodding. Patting the girl on the shoulder, he left a mark on her for moving, after which he wished good night and headed towards his friends. Maya immediately threw herself into the arms of a guy who, during the rest of the fights, never came to them in the stands of the spectators. Howling in his subconscious, the blonde lightly hugged the girl in response, accepting congratulations. Kai smiled contentedly, rubbing his palms in anticipation of tomorrow's battles. Cyrus apologized for the fact that all this time he considered the guy not very strong. The My sisters limited themselves to the usual congratulations, while the others had already left for the room a long time ago. I propose to celebrate this significant event. I treat. Kai immediately offered, winking at the guy and looking at the girl he was hugging. Despite another subconscious howl of the guy, who was already tired of this topic with Maya, he did not refuse, because he wanted to eat more than not fall under some actions of the matchmaker. Naruto wasn't the only one who didn't mind taking a walk for free, so no one was planning on heading to their room anymore, heading straight for the nearest restaurant, which wasn't that far from their hotel. The evening clearly promised to be fun for the guys, given the jackpot that Kai hit thanks to the victory of the Uzumaki. Dodging once again Maya's attempt to kiss the boy, the blonde sighed heavily, laying the girl down on the bed. He, of course, suspected that the evening would be fun, but did not think that it would be so. Apart from the fact that Kir tried his chances with the younger of the sisters, from whom he received quite a hard face, the evening passed without fights within their company, but not with anyone else. 2 hours after the guys entered the restaurant, Mia began to be molested by one annoying guy who participated in the tournament, but lost without a chance. Apparently, the guy wanted to win at least somewhere, but fate today clearly turned away from him. When Naruto planned to intervene, Kai got rid of the arrogant boy quite easily by simply punching him in the stomach and taking him out into the street. This action gave rise to a full-fledged fight that destroyed everything in the restaurant. At the end of this fight, Kai, as the one who started the skirmish, had to repair the damage caused to the institution, even though he no longer participated in the fights. Apparently, that's why it was quiet here before. No one simply wanted to compensate for the damage caused by an uncontrolled fight. After that, the peasant's wallet was half empty, but something still remained from the victory. Not as much as before, but not enough either. But most of all, the guy was shocked by the drunk Maya, who throughout the evening tried either to retire with Naruto, then just kiss, then somehow touch the guy, obviously trying to somehow seduce him. Nobody expected such a thing from a rather modest girl, but, as they say, in a still whirlpool. This continued on the way to the number, which the guy did not risk overcoming with the help of Harem, fearing for the condition of the girl's stomach. Therefore, resigned to his fate, he took the girl in his arms and carried her to the hotel, which, fortunately, was not so far from the restaurant. Despite Naruto's attempts to dodge the girl still managed to pull the guy into a kiss several times. For example, now, sharply pulling the guy who did not have time to move away, Mia threw him on the bed, forcing him to be on top and pulling him into a kiss. A moment of shock, after which Uzumaki pulls away from the girl, as if scalded. Disappearing in Harem, the guy moved to the edge of the nearest forest, dodging another attempt by the girl to kiss him. Restoring his breath, the guy in surprise touched his own lips with his palm, reproducing this unexpected moment in his head. An image of a smiling blue-eyed girl appeared before his eyes, pulling him to her, clinging to her lips. His hand still remembered the feeling at the moment when he tried to hold himself back so as not to completely fall on the girl, resting his hands on the sides of the girl's body. Placing his palms directly on the blonde hair, the smell of which the guy felt all the time when the girl hugged him, but not like now. Not so much. The guy never thought that something could evoke such incomprehensible and conflicting emotions in him. No, he did not believe that he fell in love with this girl or became attached, but he simply could not explain his own emotions in any other way. He had never experienced such feelings before in his life, being in shock from the explosion that occurred inside him. Surprise, happiness, and fear, all these emotions and a bunch of others mixed together, creating a weapon of incredible power. Putting himself in order after a few more minutes, Naruto tried not to think about the girl so that her image would not pop up before his eyes, but it turned out to be clearly lousy. Everything seemed so unreal that the guy just wanted to run away to hell, just not to feel such emotions at least once again. He clearly wasn't ready for something like this. Having only recently decided to become his former self, he endeared himself to a girl who fell in love with him and will now suffer because of him. The guy simply did not understand what was going on in his head now. All thoughts were mixed up, not allowing a sensible assessment of what is happening around. Even Hiroki approaching didn't make Naruto get out of his own thoughts and stop self-torture. It wasn't until Uzumaki got tired of watching the blonde man sighing heavily as he grabbed his hair that he spoke again, this time a little louder, releasing some of his own chakra. Sensing danger, the blonde immediately released half of his chakra, previously hidden under seals and hermit mode, making it impossible for the Uzumaki to move. The kunai that flew at the guy flew near the head, but just as he was about to rush at the enemy, Hiroki's voice rang out, which everyone apparently forgot about. "Stop fighting!" The Uzumaki snarled, knocking off the boy's chakra, glancing towards the tree where a young red-haired boy appeared, who was apparently Hiroki's bodyguard. "Please forgive my subordinate for such a rash action. He thought that an attack had been made on me, and therefore tried to interfere. Could you take this pressure off now?" In an instant, All the chakra that had previously enveloped the field disappeared, and the guy himself finally came to his senses, more consciously looking at his interlocutor and the boy standing next to him, who looked to be about 16 years old, but in strength he was not inferior to the average jonin. "Why did you call me here?" The guy was the first to break the silence, sitting comfortably under the crown of a tree. He needed to sit down, because he no longer had the strength to stand on his feet. "You really are Uzumaki, I feel it, but I have never heard of you. Especially about Uzumaki's marriages with someone else's blood," Hiroki began from afar, but the blonde didn't react to these words, waiting for the guy to get to the point. "Not to say that he has not heard of him, he will make an appointment. At least Naruto hopes so. We have a very bad attitude towards those who mix our blood with someone else's, Naruto. I don't know who your parents are, but their entrance to the clan's territory is definitely closed, but not everything is lost for you. Probably no one told you about where your clan is and how to get there, right?" The Uzumaki just nodded, trying to contain his surprise. He didn't expect things to turn out this way. He, apparently, would now be offered to go with them to Yuzushio, although he had already been offered, albeit not directly. Naruto didn't believe in such luck, and he didn't believe in such kindness either. Therefore, the guy tried to find at least some catch in the words, but so far there was nothing like that. Everything seemed to be clearer than water. Helping relatives is an obligatory duty of every Uzumaki, and I am no exception. After this tournament, we'll head back to the village. I suggest you come with us. Hiroki continued as Naruto tensed even more. Too suspicious kindness towards, in fact, a stranger, albeit a clan member. It's just not that easy to get to us. Barriers cannot be overcome by people who wish our clan evil. And if you get to us in the next few years, the exit from the village will not be available to you. But all this time you will be helped, so it's not so scary. That's all I wanted to say. You can tell the answer after the end of the last round, and good luck tomorrow." "I agree," the Uzumaki said without hesitation. It was a great chance to escape from the outside world and finally fully understand himself, and this is exactly what the guy now dreamed of, not knowing how to deal with his emotions. With Maya, he planned to act detached for these 2 days, after which he would disappear and they would not meet with the girl again. "Good luck to you too. Arc I. Chapter 8 There was absolutely no desire to return to the room, therefore, after waiting for the Uzumaki to leave a sufficient distance, the guy hit the tree with his hand with force, blowing it to hell. Exhaling heavily, the boy looked at his own hands, which for some reason were trembling, not wanting to stop. Trying to catch his breath, the guy crouched against the untouched tree, covering his eyes and rolling down. If anyone knew how much effort had to be applied to calm the emotions raging inside at the time of the conversation with Uzumaki. And now, when the dialogue ended, all the pent-up feelings were out of control at once, falling on Naruto in an unpleasant crushing stream that he really wanted to get rid of. "I was just kissed by a girl, and I am in such a state. Jiraiya would have reminded me of this for a long time, scoffing in every possible way." The guy grinned, trying to somehow distract himself from annoying thoughts about Mei. Yeah, he never thought that he would kill himself like that because he was kissed by a girl with whom he had known for no more than a month, and who meant nothing to him. At least it didn't mean anything, but now Naruto couldn't say it with all the certainty he used to. The girl still hooked him, and it was stupid to deny it now. After a few minutes of emotional self-torture, the guy passed out, falling into a dream. A soft knock on the door, then Kai opens it, entering Naruto's room. Looking around, the man did not notice the latter. In the room there was only Mei, sleeping on the bed of the guy, who smiled happily in her sleep. Approaching the girl, he began to gently wake her up, remembering the state in which she was brought to the room yesterday. She will obviously not go away right away. "Good morning, Kai-san," the girl greeted the man with a yawn. Kai greeted her back, noting to his own surprise that the girl, unlike him, didn't start clutching her head in an attempt to calm the pain. Apparently, only he got sick after yesterday's booze. "Where's Naruto-kun?" The man just raised an eyebrow in surprise, shrugging his shoulders. He planned to ask her the same question. At the request of the girl to leave the room so that she could change, Kai immediately responded, leaving the room and heading for several sofas that were on their floor. Half an hour later, 5 of them were again in the ranks, except that the 6th Naruto was not enough. The rest also divided into some groups and walked together all the time, without much contact with their neighbors outside the room. No one objected, and there shouldn't have been. After a good breakfast, which passed in silence, which could not help but strain the man, as well as Maya, who was looking around tensely. Mia and Kaya were clearly no better, burying themselves in their plates and not saying a word. Apparently, the morning was strange not only for him, but also for the twins, along with Cyrus. Only little Katsumi was talking animatedly about something, without getting into any troubles because of alcohol, corny because no one allowed her to drink. Having finished with the morning meal, the company headed towards the arena, where the next stage will begin in about 20 minutes. The path to the stadium passed all in the same silence, interrupted by questions from the hyperactive Katsumi, who understood that something was wrong, but boredom took over, forcing her to ask some question to bring the guys to a dialogue. Having reached the arena and taking empty seats, Kai noted that there were much more spectators. Apparently, you will have to come to the third stage half an hour before the start, otherwise you may not find places. In the center of the arena stood the swordsmen who had passed the first stage, breaking into pairs and actively discussing something with their partners. The draw has not yet taken place, waiting for the last participants who have not yet appeared. Naruto was not among them, although his partner was in the arena. It's strange, considering that they planned to practice together before the start of the stage. From the tense jerking of her legs, one could understand that the girl herself did not know where her partner was. "Where's Naruto-san?" Katsumi asked in surprise, looking at her relative. Maya said nothing, lost in her own thoughts and replaying the events of the night in her mind. The way she kissed him and then he disappeared and never showed up. Maybe she scared him with such actions and he decided to leave them and go far, far away, so as not to meet her again. No, Naruto-kun would never run away because of something like that. And he won't leave Kai-san, they still have an agreement. She tried to convince herself that the guy's disappearance was not her fault. It turned out, however, lousy, but the girl had no choice but to continue to convince herself of this. Perhaps it was just not worth kissing him, then everything would be fine, as before. But then he wouldn't have noticed my feelings. Kami, why is everything so complicated? Soon, when all the remaining fighters appeared except for Naruto, the judge announced the start of the draw. Uzumaki's partner, if he does not come before the start of their battle, will have to fight alone against two at once. The girl did not argue, accepting the conditions of the tournament, and hoping that this blonde would not let her down, and would come before the start of their fight, which, by the way, was the third in a row. And they will no longer fight 2 by 2, but 2 by 2 by 2, that is, 3 teams will simultaneously fight for the passage to the next stage, which strained the girl even more. Against 2 swordsmen, she might have held her own, but against 2 teams, she had no chance. "Where are you, Naruto?" Kai began to get nervous, remembering how much he bet on the passage of their team to the next stage. The fact that the guy took his share for the first round and left, the man did not believe Naruto was not like that, whom he knows. After the announcement of the first pair of teams, all the remaining ones left the arena, heading to the spectator balcony, where they were met by the same observers from yesterday's Hozuki clan. The first fight was between 2 men in their 30s, who apparently turned out to be familiar friends, against 2 young girls. By the way, there were about a third of girls at the second stage, which was rather strange for this time. As soon as the referee announced the start of the fight, a thick fog enveloped the arena, making it impossible for the girls to see their opponents. Standing with their backs to each other, the partners prepared to repel the blow, which did not follow in a minute, or 2 or 5. When the fog cleared, the bodies of the rivals were revealed to the eyes of the girls, which lay unconscious on the floor. Apparently, the teammates somehow knocked each other out, not finding their own rivals in this fog. Loud laughter erupted in the stands. Before that, there were also quite funny participants who could injure themselves with their own attack, but for 2 of them to be on the same team, this is the first time. The losers were carried off by several Hozuki, clearing the battlefield for the next battle. The second fight was between the clear favorites and promising newcomers, who at their age have reached a pretty good level. Uzumaki Hiroki and Matsuoka Raiden fought against 2 rather young shinobi, one boy of 16 and a girl of 15. Both in the first stage showed an excellent result, defeating their opponents in less than a minute, moving away from each other at a decent distance. The rivals began to wait for the start of the battle. As soon as the referee gave the go-ahead, Raiden took off, placing his hand on the hilt and preparing to finish everything with one blow. The girl ran towards her opponent, pulling out a katana and getting ready to attack. 3 meters apart, when Matsuoka used the technique, a stone wall appeared between the rivals, which the guy's technique demolished, but this was enough for the girl to hide from the guy's gaze. Looking around in surprise, as soon as the layer of dust disappeared, Raiden could not find his rival. Only the voice of his partner helped the guy dodge the girl's attack from above. Having landed competently, the girl from a low start twitched towards the opponent, planning to finish the battle with him with one blow, but an invisible wall that appeared in front of her did not allow her to complete her plan. Instantly increasing the distance, she looked in surprise at Uzumaki, calmly approaching his partner and showing the rest of the barrier that he had set up even before the start of the battle. It only remained to activate it. "Thank you," the boy said, taking a deep breath in and out. The plan to go ahead and win failed due to good opponents who could resist his technique, unlike yesterday's peasant. "Address," Uzumaki nodded, looking with interest at the boy who was standing next to the girl. Pretty good level of Doton for this age, and in principle too. Among their clan, this element is not particularly common, and those who possess it would not be able to create a 2-meter wall at such a speed at a good distance. While Uzumaki was evaluating the abilities of his opponents, Raiden completely covered his body with the element of lightning, as is done in the land of lightning by the masters of the Raiten. Grinning, Hiroki stepped aside a little, allowing his partner to sort things out on his own. The two didn't create any difficulties, so if Matsuoka couldn't handle it, he would have to intervene and end the fight quickly. This time, the boy's wall did not help at all. Raiden flew through it, easily destroying it. Having built a row of walls, the guy prepared to reflect the opponent's blow, but after the destruction of the last wall, he disappeared. On instinct, turning back, the guy erected another wall, closing himself from numerous blows with his sword. Another disappearance of the opponent, and this time the appearance from the side. Cursing quietly, he rushes at the guy, taking the blow of an incomprehensible technique onto himself and becoming a living bait. A girl who appeared from behind stabbed the boy's body with a katana, forcing him to get rid of his lightning shield and look back over his shoulder. Another second and the girl pulls out a weapon from the body of a defeated opponent who has fallen next to her former partner. Looking towards Uzumaki, she raised her hand in surrender and fell down, unconscious. The last jump, as well as the passage of the katana through the lightning barrier, cost her dearly, devastating the entire reserve. If she had put a little less chakra into the katana, she would not have been able to defeat her opponent without simply breaking through the skin. "Next couples," the judge announced loudly, after the dead shinobi were taken away, and the unconscious one was carried to the infirmary. Uzumaki did it himself, because he did not even enter the battle. 5 people descended onto the field, 3 guys and 2 girls. One more was missing, but he did not plan to delay the start of the battle for more than 5 minutes. Moreover, the audience will need these 5 minutes in order to move away from several kills during the previous fight. The first murders have always been hard on the audience. "How long are we going to wait for him?" one girl asked Naruto's partner, snorting in displeasure. The arrogance of that clearly does not hold. She had nothing to answer, because the girl herself needed an answer to this question. "Maybe you'll give up then? We can unite at the very beginning and get rid of you, after which we will move on to a real fight." "As if it would help you," came a voice in the speaker's ear. Turning around, she saw a sleepy guy with several branches sticking out of his hair, and tree leaves stuck to his t-shirt. The guy just fell asleep. Didn't run away, frightened, as Maya thought. Didn't betray him by taking the prize, as Kai didn't want to think. "I just overslept, and that's it." Surprised looking at her own partner, the girl sighed heavily. Although he came, which is already pleasing, they don't even know each other's abilities, so there can be no talk of interaction. "I'm sorry, Kiryu-chan." Uzumaki smiled as he approached his partner. He looked so stupid now that the girl even forgot to be outraged because of the appeal to herself. As soon as the referee saw that the last guy had arrived, he announced that he was ready for the fight, after which the start of the fight itself. Both teams immediately rushed towards Naruto and the girl, silently uniting. It could have been worse, as Uzumaki noted to himself, but the girl was clearly nervous. Not noticing any actions from her partner, the girl quickly folded the seals, creating several huge water drops in front of her and her partner, the size of a 2-meter person. The opposing teams immediately stopped, noticing how the bubbles began to increase. The technique was obviously impressive, but useless for attack. Naruto moved behind his opponents, aiming his sword at the head and planning to finish the impudent girl with one blow, but she managed not only to dodge, but to block the blow by putting her weapon forward. That's just from a kick that made her fly off. This block did not save her in any way. Landing on the ground and not having time to take a stable position, she had to dodge the lightning strikes of the guy who was playing with her, and it showed. At some point, taking out a kunai from the pouch, the guy threw it to the side, where the Trinity was pushing the girl, getting into the neck of one of the guys and depriving him of his life. With those two, the girl, judging by the level of chakra, had to cope on her own. "Bastard!" The girl gritted through her teeth, but she still couldn't go on the counterattack, even though her opponent was distracted for a few seconds. If that blow had not been unexpected, her partner would have dodged, but in such a situation, it was not surprising that he noticed the kunai only at the last second, when it was already too late. If you can get rid of us so easily, why are you dragging on? I need to stop thinking about the problems for a little while, so keep fighting. The guy said irritably, putting some chakra into the katana and increasing the onslaught. The girl, who had had a hard time fighting before, was clearly not up to talking now. The illusion of a sword strike from above, on which the girl puts a block, and only when the sword went through her, it dawned on her that this was an illusion, but it was too late. A blow to the stomach, sending the girl straight into the wall, and slamming into her. She probably broke something, but the guy was not up to it now. Giving himself over to the battle, he wanted to forget about everything that had been troubling him all night and morning. And a girl with a Jonin level was ideal for this, although so far she has not been able to show any of her techniques. Slowly, fog began to appear in the arena, dulling all 5 senses and making it impossible to sense chakra. Closing his eyes, the guy completely focused on his own sense of danger, which saved him in such situations. The hand twitched on its own, followed by the clang of metal from the clash of 2 weapons. The girl bounces back, preparing to deliver the next blow, but the guy abruptly released a huge amount of chakra, dispelling the fog and opening a view of the girl, who rushed towards Naruto's partner, who, by the way, had already dealt with one of the 2 guys, but she also had a reserve dropped by 2/3. Instantly moving to his rival, the guy grabbed her by the neck, lifting her off the ground. With a sharp jerk, the girl received a strong blow to the stomach, forcing her to spit out a blood clot. Something will definitely be broken by the end of this crazy fight. Throwing the girl into the nearest wall, the guy went to his partner, who began to be pushed by her rival, who kept on only 1 willpower. It is commendable, but the situation is clearly different now. Hitting the carotid artery, Naruto walked over to the girl, helping her to her feet. After the announcement of the winner, doctors immediately ran into the arena, taking away the wounded. The fight was really exciting, although the result was already a foregone conclusion. Glancing in Kai's direction, the boy nodded to him, but when his eyes met Mai's, Naruto broke the contact, disappearing into the Harem. Commentary on Arc I. Chapter 8. And tomorrow fanfiction will be a month old. Arc I. Chapter 9 He disappeared, and Maya still looked at the arena with wide eyes in surprise. She did not think that he could be like that, cruel, killing without a twinge of conscience. Such a crazy lover of battles, ready to plunge into a fight with his head, not paying attention to the world around him. They all felt that terrifying desire to kill that seemed to be a simple kid. The image that the girl put on Naruto mercilessly broke, showing her the true nature of a person. This was not the cheerful boy she had imagined him to be. In front of her was the real killer. The same as those shinobi who killed her parents and slaughtered their entire clan. An unpleasant picture popped up before my eyes, Uzumaki, standing over Mia's corpse, watching with rapture her own hysteria. He was no different from those animals who greedily killed people, despite the fact that they did nothing to him. She understood that her thinking was too childish for this cruel world, but she could not do anything about it. She herself was still a child, although she had seen more than one death. Probably for Naruto this fight did not mean anything, because he was used to killing people, but for Maya it changed a lot. Starting from the representation of the character of the guy and ending with the attitude towards him. All that respect and undisguised gratitude for the fact that he illuminated their path with light instantly disappeared, replaced by a cold detachment and a slight hostility towards the person. No, she won't start treating Uzumaki badly for no reason. After all, he didn't do anything bad to her, but that love and disposition will definitely not be there. This world again and again breaks her dreams and hopes for something bright. She sincerely believed that Naruto was exactly the kind of person who, despite all the difficulties and obstacles in his path, would never become like beings fighting to quench the thirst for battle, but she apparently was mistaken again. Uzumaki Naruto is a cold-blooded killer, not her man. Having moved to the balcony for the participants, the guy immediately attracted the attention of one notorious Uzumaki in these parts. Breathing a sigh of relief, Naruto smiled faintly. The battle, albeit a little, helped him forget all the emotions that tormented him, replacing them with more necessary for the battle. Congratulations on passing. Hiroki approached the blonde with a faint chuckle. The guy's condition obviously caused laughter. He could barely keep on his legs trembling from overexertion, although just a minute ago he brutally defeated all his rivals, moreover, managing to kill him. I would love to meet you in the final. Naruto didn't say anything, just nodded briefly as he rolled back down the wall and settled down next to one of the Hozuki. The latter obviously did not care about the individual sitting next to him. He did not even look in his direction. Closing his eyes, the guy imperceptibly created a clone, which, not having time to appear, disappeared into the Harem and went to bed himself, not being afraid for his own life. Nobody would have been able to kill him just like that without managing to wake him up, and now, when a clone is watching him, even more so. The guy instantly turned off, falling into a much-needed, at the moment, sleep. A night spent alone with nightmares that did not want to stop over the past few days, emotional self-torment, and, as the climax of everything that happens, a breakdown during the battle and subsequent emotional emptiness. Hiroki glanced at his possible comrade in the future and chuckled, marveling at the guy's nonchalance. No one before his eyes was so indifferent to his own life. Yeah, he met a strange relative that he might have to take with him to the village, and it's not certain that he won't cause problems, given what he did just during the battle. If only from your arrival there would be more minuses than pluses. Uzumaki mentally prayed to all the demons, turning back towards the arena, where the first battle of the second half had almost ended. After his fight, nothing will impress the people. The clone watched with interest the carnage taking place in the arena, simultaneously looking at the original, so that no one accidentally nailed it. Yet, for this reason, he clearly did not want to dispel, and therefore he had to be vigilant, while also hiding from what was possible and impossible. How hard is the fate of a clone? The blonde continued to dramatize, complaining about the fate of a copy of one restless boy who loves to get into any ass. Arching an eyebrow in surprise, noticing the palm clenched into a fist, the clone sighed heavily, sincerely sympathizing. A nightmare again, apparently. Flying into the nearest wall, Naruto immediately had to dodge an opponent who instantly appeared, wanting to kill the blonde. A red ball appeared in his hand, which was instantly sent to the guy, but he managed to disappear a second before the collision, saving his own life. Appearing behind his rival, he was surprised to notice a protruding tail and 2 ears from the guy who was standing in front of him. So hovering in confusion, the blonde received a strong blow to the stomach, from which it was no longer possible to dodge. With difficulty standing still, Uzumaki met the eyes of a red and yellow eye that literally incinerated him. Such errors of the universe should not exist. The guy with silver hair became even more angry because of something. Uncomprehendingly, Naruto watched as small lights began to appear on the other hand, which immediately began to increase in size. 5 years and you will be gone, heir. Red lights began to move towards the boy, unable to move a finger, slowly soaking into the body, but without causing any pain, even though it was real fire. Erd removed his hand from the guy's stomach, giving him the opportunity to make at least some movement. The ears immediately disappeared, as did the tail, and the unknown person himself began to slowly evaporate in the air. Who are you? Naruto could only squeeze out, regaining consciousness from the sight of a disappearing rival, who left behind many questions that no one but this fox man would give an answer to. But the question, like the guy himself, was ignored, and the one to whom he asked disappeared without a trace, leaving not even a grain of chakra behind. Before Naruto had time to say a word, a rough voice sounded in his head, which clearly did not want to disappear. Literally a few seconds later, the guy woke up already in the real world, noticing the face of the guard in front of him, next to which he fell asleep. Seeing no one on the balcony, he nodded his thanks as he rose to his feet and quickly made his way down to the middle of the arena where the rest of the swordsmen were standing. Glancing at everyone with a quick glance, the guy yawned relish, covering his mouth with his hand. It is not known how much he slept, but the body clearly needed more, as did the mind of the guy who had some kind of emptiness in his head after waking up. The dream, which, as Chuka suggested, was quite important, practically disappeared from memory. Only some incomprehensible phrase associated with 5 years of life was spinning in the mind, also striving to disappear. Congratulations to everyone present for advancing to the 3rd stage, the judge said curtly, looking around at the 11 shinobi standing in front of him. For the most part, he sensed a pretty good level of chakra, even though they had only recently finished the battle. Almost everyone was about the same level as him, except for 2 Uzumaki and another girl who defeated her enemies in a few seconds. What can I say, 3 monsters, which are still worth looking for. I'd like to withdraw from the finals. The girl next to Naruto stepped forward. Glancing at his partner, the boy arched an eyebrow in surprise. He did not expect that the girl who had spent so much energy to defeat those 2 guys would so easily take and refuse to participate without even trying. The judge only nodded, after which the girl headed towards the exit, accompanied by a weak applause from a small number of people sitting next to the exit. Disgruntled exclamations were heard from somewhere, but literally a minute later everything stopped when the girl disappeared from the field of view of the audience. We will draw lots now, and the battles will take place tomorrow. Taking out an extra piece of paper with the number 11, the judge began to approach each of the players in turn, allowing them to take a piece of paper with their number. As soon as the numbering was done, a shinobi appeared next to the referee, who immediately disappeared, giving him some piece of paper. Everything is written here, you can get acquainted with the pairs of tomorrow's fights. Finding his number, the blonde turned his head, trying to find tomorrow's opponent. It would seem that this should not take even a few seconds, but since the guy slept through almost all the fights, he didn't know the names with the names, respectively. The name only indicated that his rival was a girl, but there were 2 of them among those who passed, so it was not possible to draw any definite conclusion. That's all. Till tomorrow. The judge, nodding to all the participants, disappeared into the shunshin, leaving the guys alone with their future rivals and competitors. Everyone immediately headed towards the exit, and some simply disappeared into the shunshin, like the referee before that. Well, Naruto remained standing in place, feeling next to him a huge surge of chakra of the girl who had disappeared in the shunshin. Yeah, her power would be the envy of many Jonin Konoha of the future, to say nothing of ordinary shinobi. It is strange that there is not a word about her anywhere. She was not far behind me during the 4th. The Uzumaki thought thoughtfully, also about to leave here. There were a few things left for him to prepare for today. Glancing in the direction of his acquaintances, the guy disappeared into the Harem, leaving nothing behind. Burying her face into the pillow, the girl howled softly, kicking her legs. How bored she was now to sit in this room when others were walking somewhere. She herself said that she would go home, and would not stay to take a walk. And all in order to talk with Naruto, who, well, could not help but come to the hotel today. It turned out that he could. She would have understood if he had not gone to the room immediately after the battle. But the clock is almost 10 o'clock, and the blonde is still gone and gone. All his things were here, so the option of his leaving was automatically dismissed by the girl's consciousness. He does not need it, at least, and it will be illogical. "Hi!" came a familiar voice from a nearby bed. Turning her head towards the boy, Maya nodded in greeting, assuming a sitting position. Having examined the guy from head to toe, the girl did not find any changes since the last time she saw him. "We need to talk about what happened last night." The guy's look immediately became a little more serious, and he himself, it was clear, was very tense. But despite the fact that the blonde was alarmed by the upcoming dialogue, a slight smile did not leave the guy's face, as did the confidence and nonchalance with which he spoke. During the battle, he had exactly the same smile. An unpleasant thought did not want to disappear from the girl's head, worsening the mood of the latter, which could be easily understood only by one glance at Maya. "To be honest, this is the first time I've been in such a situation." Naruto began somehow languidly, clearly doubting himself and his own words. After a few seconds, the guy continued more confidently. "I really enjoy talking with you, but now, after everything that has happened to me and will happen to me, I am not ready to respond to your feelings in any way. Sorry if I gave you false hope." "It's okay, everything is in order," the girl smiled, looking into the eyes of the guy, on whose face the surprise of such a calm reaction was clearly read. He obviously expected her to have a tantrum or something, but clearly not like that. "Forgive me for acting like this. I didn't control myself then, so I sincerely regret what happened." Nodding, the boy allowed himself to relax, believing that the girl really wasn't hurt by his words. She answered him too sincerely, and such a carefree smile clearly spoke volumes. With his own feelings, he was able to sort out, surprisingly, quite quickly. How he did it he himself did not understand, but still the fact remained at least some feelings for the girl, which he was able to put out, so that he did not feel any feelings other than friendship. Archi. Chapter 10 A faint smile that lit up his face, and the guy disappears into Harem, dodging a quick blow from his opponent. By the way, she turned out to be a young brunette, who in the previous round was the partner of the girl who interested Naruto in her strength. She was not weak, but not to say that she was strong, so she didn't create much problems for the guy either. "Stop running already." The girl growled angrily, trying to get the guy with her weapon, but he just disappeared, appearing nearby. Another jerk, but the blonde dodges again, disappearing into his technique. "And why are you pulling?" Shrugging nonchalantly, the boy dodged the attack again, appearing behind the girl. A push in the back, and she starts to fall, while turning around trying to hit her opponent. Pushing off the ground with her hand, the brunette rose to her feet again, preparing for a blow from an opponent who had ceased to dodge. Finished. Naruto breathed, placing the blade of his blade against the girl's neck. She shuddered, slowly turning her head towards her opponent. Meeting the guy's gaze, the brunette only nodded weakly so as not to touch the blade with her neck, and raising her hand, announced her own defeat. The referee declared the end of the fight, after which Naruto put the sword back into its sheath. After briefly saying goodbye to his opponent and thanking for the fight, the guy disappeared into the Harem, appearing next to his relative. Uzumaki stood against the wall, leaning against it, and watching the rivals descending down. The next fight was between the second girl, who turned out to be Kazumi Terumi, against a large dark-skinned man wielding a sword commensurate with a good axe. Despite the superiority in the physical plane, the girl was several times superior to her opponent in terms of chakra, and therefore the result was already a foregone conclusion. As soon as the referee announced the start of the fight, the man struck the ground with his weapon, causing a small earthquake and lifting several blocks of earth, completely changing the battlefield. Pushing off from the appeared block of earth in the form of a board, the dark-skinned man flew towards his rival. Having prepared to repel the blow of the enemy, the girl watched in amazement as another block of earth appeared in front of her, which was hit with force, forcing fragments to fly in her direction. Disappearing in a shunshin, Kazumi appeared 10 meters away from her rival, watching with interest how such a large person moves at such a speed, pushing off the blocks of earth. There is a flash of lightning, and the girl has to dodge a shinobi that appears from behind. The opponent's chakra level instantly jumped, almost reaching the girl. A body shrouded in a veil of lightning seems to give a good boost to the already existing chakra level, as well as to physical characteristics. Give up, it will get worse, the man said, increasing his pressure, passing his own chakra through the sword. Smiling, the girl stepped aside, dodging the slashing blow. It was clearly not worth messing with such a long time, because the speed increased with every second of the battle. It's time to finish. The cover disappeared literally for a second, after which the man literally evaporated, appearing right in front of the opponent, and inflicting a horizontal blow that blew off the girl's head. Sheathing his weapon, the man calmly turned towards the judge, meeting the blade at his neck. Disappearing, the man again drew his own weapon, covering himself with a cover of lightning. The girl immediately appeared in front of her opponent, clashing with swords. A faint smile appears on the girl's face, and the man jumps to the side, watching in surprise as the sword slowly begins to melt. It's impossible to continue the battle without a blade. The girl breathed calmly, sheathing her own weapon and approaching her opponent, whose sword had already completely disappeared. Thanks for the fight, it was really interesting. It was not worth relaxing after killing my Earth clone, then perhaps there would be a chance of winning. Thank you for the battle. The man nodded in response, holding out his hand to the girl. Smiling, Kazumi returned the handshake before heading to the balcony. Wrong, Uzumaki understood that there was no point in wasting chakra in the very first battle of the final stage. But with such an opponent, saving chakra was incredibly difficult, not to mention the fact that it was required to defeat him with minimal costs. He didn't use chakra at all. The girl muttered, recalling the previous fight, where the blonde just moved around the field, and as a result, Corny put the blade to his neck, as she planned to do. True, he managed to end the battle in this way, unlike Terumi, who had to spend a lot on a clone and further equipment. Climbing to the balcony, on the way he met with the second Uzumaki, who won this competition last year. Yes, she perfectly remembered what this red-haired man did on the battlefield with her brother in the final. She had never seen such horror before, and she hoped she never would. I remember what I came here for, brother. The girl breathed out softly as she opened the door to the balcony, where the remaining members and several Hozuki were standing. Their clans have been allies for a long time, so she has known these two since the signing of the peace treaty between their clans. Your Kekkei Genkai is impressive. Hozuki, standing to her left, turned to the girl Kitaro, the older brother, the second brother standing nearby, simply congratulated the girl on the passage, and ended the dialogue with that. It's not for nothing that you were sent here, Terumi. Show them what the Alliance can do. I know without you, Kitaro, the girl said coldly, her eyes flashing angrily in the direction of the guy. Such treatment always annoyed the girl, but she could not do anything about it, except to intimidate the guy, but no more. To harm her clan, which had difficulty joining the Alliance, she clearly did not burn with desire, and therefore ignored all the verbal attacks of the guy. Really amazing. Naruto joined in with a fox-like smile at Hozuki, who was standing next to Terumi. The boy was almost an exact copy of Sasuke's partner, except for his height. This one was clearly shorter than Suigetsu. The girl, in the distance, resembled the fifth Mizukage, but if it weren't for the surname, it's not a fact that Uzumaki would be able to somehow compare the appearance of this girl with the appearance of Mei. The blonde hair cut under a square, Blue eyes and a completely closed suit clearly did not compare with the appearance of the Mizukage. Yes, even when he found out that the girl had the same last name as the future ruler of the Mist, the guy did not really believe that they could even be distant relatives. Although the Yotun with which the girl impregnated her sword spoke of the fact that there is still a family connection. It's not just its presence, but the level of possession of it. Naruto winked at the girl, forcing her to tense up. She didn't expect anyone to be able to recognize her Kekii Genkai from such a distance, considering that she used it without any seals or utterances. Maybe he just heard Hozuki's phrase and didn't notice the technique himself, but still. With such an element, you can melt a guy if he starts pestering. I'll definitely try it in the future. The girl chuckled, glancing towards Hozuki, who was not only willing to melt down. Feeling a surge of chakra from the arena, Terumi turned her head in the right direction and froze, watching the Uzumaki in amazement. It was exactly the same situation as a year ago when this man fought her brother. The guy who fought with the Uzumaki was lying on the ground, clutching at the place where just a few seconds ago there was a leg, and from where blood is now pouring in a strong stream. The heartrending cry of the guy did not want to stop until the doctors ran out onto the field, immediately putting the victim to sleep. Hands involuntarily clenched into a fist. Exactly 1 year ago, this shinobi repeated the same thing with her brother, depriving him of his legs and the opportunity to be a full-fledged shinobi. She sincerely hated this man, wishing him death with all her heart, but she was not going to take revenge. Terumi could not break the promise given to her peace-loving brother. Even though the desire to kill appeared just by looking at this person, she could not kill him. You shouldn't have mentioned Yuzushiogakyure in the dialogue. Naruto sighed heavily as he watched Hiroki head towards the balcony. He heard the beginning of their dialogue perfectly, and therefore immediately understood why his friend did this to this guy. He was clearly not interested in him, but after insulting the village, Uzumaki was not going to restrain himself. They are ready to kill anyone for their homeland. The girl shuddered, looking in amazement at the guy who said all this with a certain disgust. Apparently, despite the fact that he is an Uzumaki, this was something out of the ordinary for him, unlike the same Hiroki, who is not the first time practicing such a method. Imagining in her mind the image of her brother talking to Hiroki, Kazumi tried to remember if her brother had said anything about the Uzumaki village, but she didn't have a good enough memory to remember the events of a year ago. Unless I remembered the previous fights of Uzumaki, who did not kill any of his opponents. Only her brother and current rival. Okay, let's talk some more, Kazumi-chan. Naruto smiled as he disappeared into the Hiraishin and reappeared next to Hiroki, who had stepped out of the arena. They still have plenty of time, 2.5 hours, during which the remaining 2 battles should be completed and lunch should end. Once next to Uzumaki, the guy found his bodyguard, waving to him. In response, he did not receive the same, but still he could not say hello. Hiroki didn't even pay any attention to Naruto as he continued on his way to a diner where all the staff knew him. Only when the Trinity sat down at the table did the man pay attention to the blonde, but did not say a word to him, calling the waiter to him. I'll treat you. Hiroki cheered the blonde, who obviously didn't like the prices on the menu. At least due to the fact that here they were 3 times higher than in their hotel. The bodyguard, sitting next to him, did not utter a word, even when the waiter came. Uzumaki made the order for him. Naruto stopped reading the menu the moment his gaze caught on the name of his favorite dish. Therefore, about 10 minutes later, there was adequate food in front of Hiroki and his bodyguard, and 5 huge bowls of ramen in front of the blonde. The guy obviously missed his favorite food for his entire stay in this world. Let's go tomorrow at dawn, Naruto, Hiroki said after finishing his meal, watching the blonde rubbing his belly contentedly after 10 bowls of ramen, which he finished like the first in less than a minute. His abilities were clearly amazing, a pity, a little in the wrong way, in which we would like. We will be waiting for you at the same place where we met last time. After that, both Uzumaki left, leaving the bill on the table. Naruto lay back in his chair for a while, enjoying the pleasant heaviness in his stomach, then got up from it, heading towards his hotel, where his comrades were now supposed to be. Yes, and it was necessary to take your percentage from Kai, otherwise it would obviously not be up to it later. Only 4 shinobi made it to the semifinals. Even though there were supposed to be 5. No one thought that someone would be able to end their fight in a draw, but there were such 2 friends were caught against each other, and no one wanted to lose, even though in this way both lose the opportunity to compete for the prize. In addition to the already well-known trio, a young guy went to the finals, who obviously did not have time to move away from the previous battle. The reserve was about a quarter empty, and the appearance left much to be desired, in contrast to the previously mentioned trio, among which no one received even a scratch. pairs were again determined by a draw. The person who will get this guy as a rival, in fact, automatically goes to the final, which cannot be said for sure about the second pair. Naruto, of course, surpassed both of them several times, but still they can compete with him, well, and if Hiroki and Kazumi get caught against each other, then it's impossible to predict the result at all. For Naruto, that boy was a desirable option, because 2 fights in a row against strong opponents would cost him too much. He, of course, will cope, but he clearly did not want to bring himself to a state close to exhaustion ahead of time. But fate this time was clearly unfavorable to him. Therefore, Hiroki turned out to be the first rival of the blonde, with whom he will clearly have a hard time. Uzumaki clearly did not plan to leave with nothing, so the fight promised to be memorable. In all senses. As soon as all the extras left, and another barrier appeared between the arena and the stands, the referee announced the start of the fight, disappearing into the shunshin. Here he will only interfere, and he will accidentally get hit, and from the balcony you can safely watch the unfolding battle. In less than a second, the blonde had to activate the Harashin, but for some reason it didn't work. At the last moment, walking away from the attack to the side, Naruto was surprised to realize that all the marks that he had imperceptibly placed on the